Chapter 348. Zhao Fu was thinking about the Roland historical remnant. Because he had been injured and his power had been sealed, he hadn't been able to explore Gloomy Jungle very deeply. Gloomy Jungle's stat gems and other items were all incredibly valuable. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he could explore the Gloomy Jungle. There were also many Stage 1 and Stage 2 creatures, such as the hobgoblins and minotaurs. He wondered if he could refine their corpses, which would provide him with many blood god pills. There were also the cat demons. All of them had Stage 2 strength, and even though they weren't humanoid creatures, if he could refine them, they would provide him with many raising stones. Zhao Fu returned to Qin City and chose 300 elite soldiers. These soldiers all had at least Stage 1 cultivation, and the strongest were at Stage 1 to 5. They were all veterans of Qin City, and they had a lot of battle experience. There were 100 infantrymen, 100 shield bearers, 100 archers, and 300 ghost illusionists. Zhao Fu felt that he would be able to pass through Gloomy Jungle, but he would have to rely on the 100 ghost illusionist illusions. Zhao Fu didn't waste any time and quickly led the army to East Green. He first looked around Mountain Willow Town, and Lu Subai's management was quite good. Mountain Willow Town's development was quite fast, and it was quite powerful. It was now the most powerful faction in the surrounding 1,000 kilometers. Zhao Fu only provided equipment and resources for Mountain Willow Town's development, and everything else was handled by the Mountain Willow Town. Occasionally, they would select some elites to join the Qin City's army. Following this, Zhao Fu used the teleportation channel to go to the Roland historical remnant. Before leaving, Zhao Fu had conquered a Xiongnu village and used the historical remnant's buildings as a defensive measure. After such a long time, there were now 800 or so people living in the village, and there were also 20 or so goblins standing guard. It was quite effective, and no faction had been able to conquer it. When Zhao Fu arrived in front of the Roland Ruins giant stone gate, he pushed it open. It was still the same inside. It was completely dark, and he couldn't see anything. Right now, Zhao Fu only had 67 ruins command tokens. Including himself, he could only bring 666 people with him for now. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that Gloomy Jungle was quite dangerous, so he didn't need to bring infantrymen. Zhao Fu brought infantrymen mainly to kill enemies that were numerous but too troublesome. This time, Zhao Fu brought 20 shield bearers, 30 archers, 6 blue-red goblins, and 1,000 ghost illusionists. After giving them command medallions and lighting torches, Zhao Fu led his soldiers into the Gloomy Jungle. After walking through the dark passageway for a while, Zhao Fu once again came to a dark forest. It was still very dark here, and the trees were very lush. Strange sounds could be heard from time to time, making it seem quite terrifying. Soon, Zhao Fu encountered a group of black goblins holding wooden clubs. The creatures in Gloomy Jungle were much more ferocious and crazier than those outside. After discovering Zhao Fu's group, they roared and raised their wooden clubs as they rushed over. There were 30 of these goblins, and Zhao Fu didn't personally attack. The 20 shield bearers raised their large shields and formed a shield wall in front of them. The archers behind them started to shoot arrows, and sharp arrows tore through the air towards the black goblins. Chi, chi, chi. Arrows pierced through the goblins' chests. Zhao Fu didn't bring ordinary soldiers but Qin Town's elites. Ordinary goblins wouldn't even be able to dodge their arrows. The blue-red goblins also threw out ice and fireballs, either blasting the black goblins away or freezing them. The 30 or so black goblins were easily dealt with. All of the goblins here dropped command medallion shards, and the shards were quite large. Zhao Fu only needed 5 shards to form a historical remnant command medallion. It was a pity that these goblins only dropped command medallion shards and nothing else. Zhao Fu looked at the corpses of the black goblins and found that they were all Stage 1, so he could take them back to refine blood god pills. Zhao Fu continued onwards. There were 70 or so goblins this time, and there were goblin rock throwers and hobgoblins. Apart from holding swords, some of the hobgoblins also held sabers, axes, spears, and hammers. The auras that they gave off were much more powerful than the other goblins, and they were most likely around stage 1 to 8 or 9 to 10. Facing these 70 or so goblins, Zhao Fu still didn't attack. Even though these goblins were much more powerful, they were much less intelligent. They weren't as intelligent as the goblins outside the historical remnant, and they only knew how to charge and kill. Zhao Fu once again formed a formation. This time, the shield-bearers switched to sharp spears. These shields and spears were all silver-grade equipment, and they had powerful stats and were incredibly sharp and sturdy. The archers first shot out arrows to deal with the goblin rock throwers before attacking the hobgoblins and allowing the ordinary goblins to charge forwards. These ordinary goblins raised their clubs and ferociously charged forwards, and they were incredibly fast. In just a few moments, they had arrived in front of Zhao Fu. However, the experienced shield-bearers' expressions were calm and fearless, and they gripped their spears and circulated their cultivation power as they stabbed out. Chi, 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 muffled explosions sounded out as the spears pierced through the goblins' chests, killing them instantly. Other goblins rushed forwards, and the shield-bearers once again formed a shield wall. By now, the archers had finished off the goblin rock throwers and hobgoblins. Facing the normal goblins at such a close distance, the archers were able to shoot arrows into the goblins' heads, instantly killing them. In less than 5 or 6 minutes, the archers had killed all 60 or so goblins. The ordinary goblins and goblin rock throwers all dropped command medallion shards, so Zhao Fu did not bother looking at them. What interested Zhao Fu were the silver-white motes of light that fell to the ground. Legacy, Silver Lake Immortal's Saber, Saber Essence. The essence of a legendary grade weapon, the Silver Lake Immortal Saber. Collect 1,200 of them to fuse into a Silver Lake Immortal Saber, and the saber has a legacy effect. Legacy, Silver Lake Immortal Spear, Spear Essence. The essence of a legendary grade weapon, the Silver Lake Immortal Spear. Collect 1,200 of them to fuse into a Silver Lake Immortal Spear, and the spear has a legacy effect. Legacy, Silver Lake Immortal's Spear, Hammer Essence. The essence of a legendary grade weapon, the Silver Lake Immortal's Hammer. Collect 1,200 of them to fuse into a Silver Lake Immortal's Hammer, and the spear has a legacy effect. Zhao Fu found that there were 7 types of essences: sword, saber, spear, hammer, bow, shield, and axe. If he collected these essences, he could fuse 7 types of legacy equipment and unlock the Silver Immortal's 7 battle professions. There was not much information about these professions, and only after fusing them would he know what they were. Chapter 349. Following this, Zhao Fu led his soldiers to an empty area. This time, there were another 20 or so minotaurs. These minotaurs had black skin and powerful muscles. Their eyes were blood red, and they breathed out white air. They gave off powerful auras, and it was clear that they were at stage 2. Roar! The 20 or so minotaurs were already in a berserk state, and they looked at Zhao Fu's group with savage gazes as they madly charged over. Their massive bodies stomped on the ground, giving off loud explosions and causing the ground to tremble. The archers immediately shot out powerful arrows. Facing these arrows, the stage 2 minotaurs punched out a few times, causing the air to explode and sending the arrows flying. Even if the arrows pierced into the minotaurs' bodies, they were only a few centimeters deep. The minotaurs' bodies were not only filled with power, but they also had decent defense, and they were completely fine even after being hit by so many arrows. Zhao Fu looked at these minotaurs and immediately ordered attack. The 1,000 ghost illusionists immediately raised their wooden staffs and chanted a strange incantation, causing traces of eerie, ghostly chi to rise up from the ground. The 20 or so minotaurs were instantly dragged into the dark ghost world as they ran. In actuality, these enraged creatures' minds were quite weak, and their mental defenses were quite low. As such, mental attacks were very effective against them. Within the dark ghost world, The enraged minotaurs continuously punched out, shattering countless ghosts. However, no matter how they attacked, the ghosts would never stop appearing, as if they couldn't kill them all. After all, this was an illusion, and it was an illusory existence. Zhao Fu drew the slaughtering ghost sword and walked into the area filled with ghostly chi. The slaughtering ghost sword was resistant to all ghost-type skills, and with Zhao Fu's immense strength and the effects of the King's Soul, these illusions were completely ineffective against Zhao Fu. After walking into the area filled with ghostly chi, Zhao Fu saw the minotaurs standing there in a daze. Zhao Fu sent his king's power into the slaughtering ghost sword, causing it to give off a sharp, blood-red sword light. After walking into the area filled with ghostly chi, Zhao Fu saw the minotaurs standing there in a daze. Zhao Fu sent his king's power into the slaughtering ghost sword, causing it to give off a sharp, blood-red sword light. Zhao Fu came before the first minotaur and slashed out. A blood-red sword light flashed as the minotaur's head was chopped off. Blood spurted out, and the headless minotaur's corpse powerlessly fell to the ground. Zhao Fu then walked over to the second minotaur and once again slashed out, killing it. In just 3 minutes, Zhao Fu had killed all of the minotaurs. The 100 ghost illusionists dispelled the dark ghost world, and the ghostly chi gradually dissipated, leaving behind corpses on the ground. Zhao Fu had killed 26 minotaurs in total, and they had dropped 26 azure orbs of light. Each orb of light was as big as a fist and gave off an ancient aura. It was ancient power. Zhao Fu wasn't stingy, and he gave the 26 ancient powers to the 26 archers. Right now, the archers were the most useful, and the 100 ghost illusionists were a spiritual-type profession, while the ancient powers were strength-type professions. In actuality, Zhao Fu felt that if he gave the ancient powers to some strengthening-type professions, the effects would be quite terrifying. For example, the goblin warriors were 2 meters tall and had monstrous strength, while the strong orcs were incredibly muscular and had monstrous strength. If they used the ancient powers, the effects would be quite terrifying. Of course, Zhao Fu gave them to the soldiers, as he needed the archers to increase their strength. After using the ancient powers, the archers exploded out with powerful auras, and their bodies went through massive changes. They became 2 meters tall, and their muscles gave off an oppressive aura. With just their physical strength, they were no weaker than Stage 2 soldiers. After putting away the Minotaur's corpses, Zhao Fu felt quite satisfied and continued onwards. He hoped that these corpses would also be able to refine blood god pills. That way, Qin's strength would greatly increase. Because the goblins could provide Stage 1 blood god pills, and the Minotaurs could provide Stage 2 blood god pills, Zhao Fu would not only be able to nurture a large number of Stage 1 soldiers, but he could also nurture a large number of Stage 2 soldiers. If he had a large number of Stage 2 soldiers, he would be able to dominate the world of Stage 1 soldiers. Right now, Zhao Fu was quite worried, because the goblins and minotaurs were creatures of historical vestiges, and they were different from normal creatures. Zhao Fu was worried that these corpses wouldn't be able to refine blood god pills. They continued onwards. Right now, Zhao Fu was only leading his soldiers around the outskirts of Gloomy Jungle. If he wanted to go deeper, he would have to bring the other Qin soldiers into Gloomy Jungle. Suddenly, rustling sounds could be heard from within the forest. These sounds were quite faint, but they couldn't escape Zhao Fu's ears. His expression became serious as he immediately yelled, "Get into formation!" The countless soldiers immediately became serious, and the shield-bearers raised their shields and formed a circle around the archers. The archers also drew their bows. Immediately, 50 or so cat demons jumped out of the forest. They looked like cats and were about the same size as humans. They had long fur on their heads, covering their faces, revealing only their fangs. These were the cat demons that had made Zhao Fu suffer. After appearing, these cat demons looked at Zhao Fu's group and gave off bloodthirsty howls before turning into black blurs and rushing at Zhao Fu's group. The cat demons were incredibly fast, and in the blink of an eye, they appeared in front of Zhao Fu's group. The archers shot out arrows, but because these cat demons had stage 2 strength and were agility-type creatures, only a small portion of the archers' arrows hit. However, most of the arrows that hit the cat demons were pierced through. No matter if it was agility-type creatures or agility-type professions, they focused on speed and had relatively low defense. Clang, clang, clang. The cat demons' sharp claws slammed into the shields, causing sparks to fly as they tried to break through the shield-bearer's defensive circle. Looking at these cat demons, Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and said, "The scene for back then won't happen again. I'm not the same as before. Slaughterfield domain." Zhao Fu roared as he sent a large amount of his king's power into the slaughtering ghost sword, causing it to shine with a bright blood-red light and arcs of blood-red lightning as Zhao Fu stabbed the slaughtering ghost sword into the ground. Boom! A massive aura exploded out, causing the ground to crack as a blood-red barrier spread out, forming a 1,000-meter wide blood-red energy barrier. The cat demons' greatest advantage was their speed, and if their speed was restricted, they would be easily killed. The 1,000-meter wide blood-red energy barrier covered all of the cat demons. After being covered by the blood-red energy barrier, the cat demons were given a big fright and tried to escape from the Slaughterfield domain. However, Zhao Fu once again gripped the slaughtering ghost sword and sent his king's power into it. Instantly. Chapter 350. When the cat demons slowed down, it was time for the archers to take action. The soldiers who had obtained the primordial power drew their bows to the fullest, and arrows tore through the air and shot into the cat demons' bodies. The cat demons were pierced by the arrows and immediately died. Soon, all of the cat demons had been killed by the archers. The cat demons also dropped many gemstones, which were all stat gemstones that could be socketed on equipment. Normal cat demons dropped normal stat gemstones, which gave 1 stat point. Elite cat demons dropped elite stat gemstones, which gave 2 stat points. Chief cat demons dropped boss stat gemstones, which gave 3 stat points, and so on and so forth. These stat gemstones were quite rare, and a normal gemstone could be worth as much as a blue-grade equipment. If they were brought back, they could be used to strengthen soldiers' equipment. As for these normal gemstones, Zhao Fu wasn't interested in them. He didn't plan on socketing them on his equipment because he had 3 epic grade swords, so he would need at least legendary grade gemstones to socketing them. After collecting the stat gemstones and the cat demons' corpses, Zhao Fu and his soldiers continued onwards. Soon, they encountered another group of goblins. There were 150 goblins in this group, and there were 8 or 9 blue crimson goblins. These blue crimson goblins had stage 2 strength, and the fireballs that they shot out were dark black and incredibly powerful. Zhao Fu immediately ordered the 100 ghost illusionists to cast the dark ghost world, and ghostly chi spread out, covering all of the goblins. Because the blue-red goblins were magic professions and had stage 2 strength, it would be quite easy for them to break free from the illusion. As such, Zhao Fu didn't personally act. Instead, he took out 30 or so ballistae and randomly shot towards the ghostly chi. Immediately, pain cries sounded out. Even though the ghostly chi blocked his vision, Zhao Fu remembered the goblin's general location, so he continuously shot in that direction. Powerful ballistae bolts reaped the lives of goblins, and because goblins had low defense, after the ghostly chi dissipated, only corpses were left behind. After collecting everything, Zhao Fu continued onwards. The blue-red goblins dropped enchantment cards, which were much better than ordinary enchantment cards. Rustle, 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 it was this voice again. Zhao Fu immediately ordered, "Get into formation." Sure enough, in the next moment, cat demons jumped out. These cat demons were different from the ones from before. Their fur was dark green, and their claws were pitch black. When they came into contact with the plants immediately withered, as if they were poisonous. This should be a poisonous cat demon. Zhao Fu did not know what these poisonous cat demons had up their sleeves, but poison attacks were more troublesome than other attacks and were not easy to deal with. Zhao Fu had prepared all sorts of medicinal pills within his king's ring, but he did not have many antidote pills. These were all stage 2 poison cat demons, and ordinary antidote pills would not be very effective, so he had to use good antidote pills. Right now, Zhao Fu had to make a move first. Otherwise, if these poisonous cat demons used their methods, it would be troublesome. The blood-red energy barrier instantly spread out, covering all of the cat demons. This caused the cat demons, who were about to attack, to feel quite startled. However, a wave of energy locked onto their bodies, causing them to feel that something was wrong and immediately tried to escape. However, in the end, they were shot to death by an archer. After these poisonous cat demons died, they dropped a dark green gemstone, which Zhao Fu picked up and looked at. Attribute gemstone, poison, grade, white, description, can be socketed onto any equipment, giving it a poison attribute attack and a poison attribute defense. Zhao Fu had never thought that the cat demons would drop so many types of gemstones, which could be socketed onto Qin's assassin equipment. Now that Qin was an elite assassin, his equipment could strengthen his underworld ghost power, making his movement techniques even faster and more unpredictable. If he added this poison gemstone, it would be even more powerful. Zhao Fu was quite satisfied, and he put away the gemstones and the cat demons' corpses. Following this, Zhao Fu first encountered a group of minotaurs. There were 30 or so of these minotaurs, and as soon as they appeared, they were trapped by the dark ghost world. Zhao Fu's 100 ghost illusionists were all at least stage 1, so trapping these enraged minotaurs was quite easy. Because these minotaurs' defense was quite high, Zhao Fu didn't use his ballistae. Instead, he once again personally took action, wielding the slaughtering ghost sword and killing these minotaurs. Zhao Fu gave all of the 30 or so ancient power gemstones to his soldiers to use. Now, all of the shield bearers and archers were well-built and muscular, and they gave off a powerful aura of suppression. Their strength was comparable to that of stage 2 soldiers. After killing these minotaurs, Zhao Fu once again encountered cat demons. These cat demons were different from before. Their fur was snow-white and gave off a faint white light. If it weren't for their savage fangs, they would have looked quite holy. These light cat demons were also different from the other cat demons. They could even use magic attacks. As soon as they appeared, they shot out rays of light that were 2 fingers thick. The rays of light were quite powerful, and they could instantly pierce through a 1-meter thick tree trunk. Luckily, the shield bearers all used their ancient power gemstones to block these light cat demons' attacks. Following this, Zhao Fu drew the slaughtering ghost sword and counterattacked. After a while, he killed all of the light cat demons, and they dropped a white gemstone that was as big as a fingernail. Stat gemstone, light, grade, white description, can be socketed on any piece of equipment, giving it light-type attacks and light-type defenses. Because of the poison gemstone, Zhao Fu wasn't too surprised. He continued onwards, and half an hour later, he encountered a group of dark cat demons. These cat demons all had black fur and could use the same attacks as the light cat demons. However, the light cat demons shot out white light, while the dark cat demons shot out black light. After killing this group of dark cat demons, Zhao Fu obtained a black gemstone that was the same size and shape as the light gemstone. Stat gemstone, darkness, grade, white description, can be socketed on any piece of equipment, giving it darkness-type attacks and darkness-type defenses. After looking at the stats, just as Zhao Fu was about to put the gemstones away, the sky demon said in a pitiful voice, "Master, I want this." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and asked, "You can devour this gemstone's power?" The sky demon gave a pleased smile, saying, "Of course. I'm a sky demon, so it's quite easy for me to devour pure darkness energy." Zhao Fu thought about it and said, "I promised her that I would get some magic stones for her, but I can't get any now. After all, I can't use these darkness gemstones, so I agreed to let her devour some." Chapter 351. Over the next 2 or so days, Zhao Fu and his soldiers continuously killed goblins and they finally gathered enough command medallions to bring all of the soldiers in. During those days, Zhao Fu had killed many minotaurs and obtained ancient power. Zhao Fu gave most of the ancient power to the archers and a small portion to the shield bearers, but the infantrymen didn't have any for now. Right now, Zhao Fu was only responsible for dealing with the basic goblins and helping the shield bearers attack and defend. As such, he didn't need them to use much of their strength, so he didn't give them to the infantrymen for now. Of course, if he had more, he would give them to the infantrymen. Now that there were 300 or so soldiers, Zhao Fu wanted to start exploring the inner regions of the historical remnant. Over the past few days, they had been exploring the outer regions and had obtained many good things. Zhao Fu was quite curious about the inner regions and wondered what they would be like. Zhao Fu didn't know how big this historical remnant was, so he only explored the outer regions in 2 or so days. After leading the soldiers for a while, the sound of battle suddenly sounded out from ahead. Zhao Fu ordered the soldiers to stop, and he went ahead to take a look. After jumping onto a large tree, Zhao Fu found 30 or so goblins hunting a cat demon. The 3 types of creatures that lived within the historical remnant weren't united, and they fought with each other. Zhao Fu had seen goblins and minotaurs fighting before, and cat demons hunting goblins for food. Within the historical remnant, there wasn't much food to eat, and most of it was black fruits. Because of food, the 3 types of creatures would often fight. Even though this cat demon had stage 2 strength, it was surrounded by 30 or so goblins, and it was still outnumbered. The normal goblins acted as meat shields, while the hobgoblins attacked with great force. The goblin rock throwers continuously threw rocks at the cat demon and attacked from afar. In the end, the cat demon was killed, and the 10 or so goblins were injured. Zhao Fu ordered his soldiers to kill these goblins, while the archers rained down arrows. Only 1/6 of the defenseless goblins were instantly killed, and the infantrymen raised their weapons and easily killed these goblins. After collecting the spoils of war, we continued forward. An hour later, Zhao Fu stopped and found that there was a goblin village in front of him. The village was next to a small mountain, and because the goblins' intelligence was quite low, there weren't many buildings in the village. The village was made of wood and stone, and there were only a few simple places to stay. If it weren't for the fact that Zhao Fu noticed that the city heart of the village was exposed, Zhao Fu would never have thought that this was a village. This village was silver-grayed, and because the city heart gave off a dark silver light that gave off a dark aura, it was quite easy to determine. This made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. Didn't Zhao Fu obtain 4 goblin profession change stone steels? There was a hobgoblin, a green-red goblin, and a goblin rock thrower, but those profession change stone steels are useless. This was because the profession change stone steels required a goblin village, and ordinary silver-grade villages were useless. Only a special goblin village could use the 4 professions. This was because the city heart giving off a dark silver light was most likely a special goblin village. However, there were many goblins here, at least 6,000 or so, and they wouldn't be easy to deal with. It was a pity that if Zhao Fu had brought all of his 100 ghost illusionists, the dark ghost world that they could create would be able to cover 80% of the village. That would cause 80% of the goblins to lose their fighting strength, and they would be able to easily take down the village. However, Zhao Fu had only brought 30 of them. The dark ghost world created by 300 ghost illusionists could cover roughly 1.5 kilometers, and it could at most drag 1,000 or so goblins into the illusion. Evidently, this method wouldn't work. Zhao Fu started to think. With only 300 or so soldiers, they wouldn't be able to defeat 6,000 or so goblins. After thinking for a moment, Zhao Fu thought of 2 methods. The first was to lure out the goblins in batches and then deal with them one by one. With the goblins' low intelligence, it would be easy for them to fall for Zhao Fu's trap, but it would also be quite dangerous to lure out a large group of them. The other method was to use other forces to deal with the goblins, which were the cat demons and minotaurs. Of the 2 methods, Zhao Fu chose the second one, as it would be better to be the fisherman that reaped the benefits. After all, as long as the creatures in the historical remnant died, the items would automatically drop. However, this method was quite troublesome. Zhao Fu had to personally act, or else the other soldiers wouldn't be able to outrun the minotaurs and cat demons. Zhao Fu wasn't sure about the historical remnant situation, so he didn't bring the assassin Qin. If he had Qin's assassin, he would be quite suitable for this task. After making this decision, Zhao Fu immediately acted. However, after looking around, he didn't find any large groups of cat demons or minotaurs, so he could only change his plan. He had some soldiers lure the goblins while Zhao Fu lured the minotaurs or cat demons. Zhao Fu first sent 10 archers to lure the goblins outside the goblin village. Because the goblins were quite ferocious and had low intelligence, Zhao Fu didn't know how many goblins he could lure out, so he didn't send too many people. The archers' agility stats were quite good, and they could use their bows to attack from a distance. This way, they wouldn't get too close and cause unnecessary casualties. The 10 archers obeyed and quickly sneaked towards the goblin village before shooting arrows into the village. This immediately alerted the goblins within the village. At that moment, the goblins ferociously looked over and discovered the 10 archers. Immediately, hundreds of goblins raised their weapons and rushed over, giving off an incredibly ferocious aura. The 10 archers immediately turned and ran. Elsewhere, Zhao Fu also discovered the 50 or so minotaurs. He picked up a handful of pebbles from the ground and threw them at the minotaurs. Countless pebbles hit 7 or 8 of the minotaurs' bodies, enraging them. Their eyes became blood red, and they breathed raggedly as they charged at Zhao Fu. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he turned and unhurriedly ran to the side. With Zhao Fu's current strength, if he wanted to run, the minotaurs definitely wouldn't be able to catch up. On the other side, the 10 archers lured the hundreds of goblins to an empty area before disappearing. This location was quite close to the goblin village, while Zhao Fu had to go somewhere else to lure the goblins. He was quite far away, and he wasn't sure where he would go. As such, the archers lured the goblins over while Zhao Fu didn't lure the minotaurs over. However, there was a way to deal with this. He could use the dark ghost world to trap the goblins and wait for Zhao Fu to lure them over. A while later. Chapter 352. Even though the goblins had the advantage in numbers, the minotaurs weren't weak either. Their auras were incredibly shocking, and they continuously punched out, sending a few goblins flying. The goblins started to counterattack. The ordinary goblins raised their wooden clubs and fearlessly charged forwards. The hobgoblins shot out large amounts of sword and spear lights. The goblin rock throwers threw their weapons, and the blue and red goblins shot out fireballs and ice balls. The battle between the two sides was incredibly intense, and blood and flesh flew everywhere. The minotaurs continuously punched out, and every punch that landed on a goblin contained immense power that shattered the goblin's bones. If they weren't killed, they would be heavily injured. On the goblin's side, the ordinary goblins drew the minotaurs' attention while the hobgoblins stabbed their swords into the minotaurs' bodies. A few fireballs shot out, and a massive explosion caused the minotaurs to howl as their bodies were scorched black, and they fell to the ground dead. Zhao Fu hid by the side and watched. This battle was incredibly intense, mainly because the goblins had low intelligence and violent personalities, and they fought with their lives on the line. However, the battle was still in favor of the goblins. After all, there were 500 goblins, and the minotaurs fell one by one. Not a single minotaur ran away, and they fought with their last bit of strength. In the end, all 40 or 50 minotaurs died, and nearly 300 goblins died. Zhao Fu and the others, who were lying in ambush, started to attack. Swish, swish, swish. Arrows arced through the air and descended like a rain of arrows, hitting the goblins, who had just relaxed because the battle was over. Chi, chi, chi. Blood flew everywhere, and more than half of the remaining 200 or so goblins fell. The remaining goblins were so scared that they immediately ran away. They didn't have the Minotaur's determination to fight to the death. However, these escaping goblins were immediately stopped by the shield bearers and infantrymen, and they were all killed. Zhao Fu happily collected the spoils of war. It was the first time that he had obtained so many items so easily. After collecting the spoils of war, Zhao Fu continued with his plan. This time, Zhao Fu lured over a group of cat demons. There were more than 150 of them, and these cat demons were extremely fast. Zhao Fu couldn't help but become serious, in case these cat demons caught up to him. On the other side, the soldiers had lured 1,000 or so goblins over, and the 1,000 or so goblins met with the 150 or so cat demons. They roared and gave off ferocious auras as they charged at each other. The battle was even bloodier than before. The cat demons swiped with their claws, splitting the goblins' bodies into pieces, causing blood and organs to fly everywhere. The cat demons opened their mouths and bit down, their fangs piercing through the goblins' bodies, instantly killing them. Even though the cat demons were incredibly ferocious and terrifying, there were many goblins and there were many blue and red goblins. The ice balls landed on the cat demons, causing their bodies to freeze and their movements to become stiff. At that moment, countless goblins rushed up, and the hobgoblins used their sabers or axes to dismember the cat demon. Some goblins leapt up and bit off a piece of the cat demon's fur, while countless fireballs blasted the cat demon's flesh into pieces, creating a gory scene. In the end, the goblins still won the battle in terms of numbers. However, the goblins had suffered heavy casualties, and only around 200 or so goblins remained from the 1,000 goblins. Zhao Fu once again ordered his soldiers to act, and soon they had dealt with the injured goblins. The third time, Zhao Fu discovered 500 or so cat demons, making Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. Zhao Fu didn't disturb them for now, and he ordered his soldiers to lure out more goblins before going to lure out the cat demons. This time, it was 2,500 or so goblins versus 500 or so cat demons. The battle was abnormally intense, but this time, the cat demons had the upper hand. These cat demons were not only incredibly fast, but their claws and fangs were also filled with venom. If a goblin was slashed by their claws, the venom would spread throughout their body, causing them to foam at the mouth and die. Even though the 2,500 or so goblins desperately fought back, they were still unable to defeat the 500 or so cat demons. The goblins continuously died, and the cat demons also suffered some casualties. In the end, when there were only 500 or so goblins left, they started to run, while there were only 300 or so cat demons left. These 300 or so cat demons didn't want to let the goblins off and wanted to kill them all, so they chased after the goblins. However, at that moment, a figure appeared at the center of them. He wasn't a messenger of peace, but a messenger of death. Seeing Zhao Fu suddenly appear, the cat demons remembered that it was him who had drawn them here. So many of them leapt at Zhao Fu. At that moment, Zhao Fu stabbed a jet-black, demonic sword into the ground, and a large amount of demonic qi instantly dyed the ground black, covering the surrounding 10 meters. However, the changes didn't stop there. A black substance rose up from the ground and covered Zhao Fu, forming a 10-meter-wide, semicircular black barrier. At that moment, the cat demons bared their fangs and prepared to leap at Zhao Fu. Within the black barrier, Zhao Fu raised a hand, and his king's seal appeared on his palm, giving off a terrifying black light as a formless energy spread out. Swish, 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 numerous 1-meter-long black thorns emerged from the black barrier and shot out in all directions like raindrops. Everything within a radius of over 1,000 meters was within the range of the attack. No matter if it was the escaping goblins or the attacking cat demons, they all felt a wave of terror and desperately tried to escape. However, their bodies were still pierced by the black spikes, and their bodies were riddled with holes, causing them to die pitiful deaths. Zhao Fu directly used his City Lord Seal's power and slightly changed the king's profoundness, 10,000 burial. Now, the ground was covered with 1-meter-long black spikes, as well as corpses. Whether it was the cat demons or the goblins, they were all dead. The black barrier slowly dissipated, turning into demonic qi and returning to the sky demon sword. Zhao Fu looked at the corpses on the ground and felt quite satisfied. He then ordered his soldiers to collect the spoils of war. Now, there were only 2,000 or so goblins left in the goblin village, and Zhao Fu didn't plan to use the second method. Instead, he decided to use the first method. After luring out another group of goblins, Zhao Fu would be able to directly attack the goblin village. As such, he had the archers aggro the goblins once again. At that moment, a 3-meter-tall, ugly, and fat goblin appeared. This goblin's skin was black, and he held a large scimitar. On his head was a golden crown, but there were some cracks on the golden crown, and it gave off a noble light. What shocked Zhao Fu was that this goblin's name was Goblin King. Chapter 353. Goblin King. This was the first time that Zhao Fu had seen such a thing. If it was a wild beast with a king in its name, it wouldn't be a big deal. For example, Zhao Fu had the Gray Wolf King and the Black Forest Horse King, but he had never seen an intelligent creature with a king in its name. The Goblin King's aura was incredibly powerful, and what shocked Zhao Fu even more was that he could sense a trace of king's power from it. No matter what kind of creature it was, the word king signified that it was very powerful. When Zhao Fu saw that the Goblin King would soon catch up to the enemy soldiers, he took out an evil-crushing spear and activated it with his king's power. The evil-crushing spear gave off a bright silver light and arcs of lightning as it gave off terrifying energy ripples. Zhao Fu roared as he threw the evil-crushing spear. Boom! An explosion sounded out as the evil-crushing spear turned into a massive ray of silver light that seemed to be able to pierce through everything as it shot towards the Goblin King. Bang! The Goblin King slashed out with his saber, sending out a massive wave of saber light that slammed into the ray of silver light, resulting in a massive explosion. At the same time, the shock waves from the explosion turned into a massive gale that swept out for 1,000 meters. Hurry up and leave, Zhao Fu ordered. By now, Zhao Fu was completely sure that the Goblin King had king's power. Could it be that the Goblin King really was a king? This was the first time that Zhao Fu had seen a living king. Just this Goblin King alone was enough to annihilate his 300-man army, let alone the 2,000 or so goblins behind him. They would definitely lose in a direct confrontation, so they had to think of some other way. As such, Zhao Fu ordered his army to run towards a nearby valley. Who would have thought that a king would come out from attacking a village? The Goblin King was incredibly fast and ferocious. Everything in its way was destroyed by a single slash of its saber, and if it wasn't for the fact that its speed was restricted, it would have caught up to Zhao Fu's army. Zhao Fu thought of a summoning skill, Godly Hell's Gate. As Zhao Fu raised the Sky Demon Sword, a black ray of light shot into the sky, and an explosion sounded out as a 10-meter-wide black hole appeared in the sky. Traces of demonic chi flowed out of the black hole. Roar, roar, roar. Small evil demons with a pair of fleshy wings on their backs and ferocious expressions, holding steel tridents, roared as they crawled out of the black hole. These demons' strength was close to stage 1, and there were 100 or so of them. They flew in the sky and evilly looked at the Goblin King with their black eyes before quickly attacking. Facing these attacking demons, the Goblin King savagely roared and swung the scimitar in his hand, sending out large amounts of saber light that turned the demons into demonic chi. These little demons were completely powerless against the Goblin King, but since they had been summoned by Zhao Fu as cannon fodder, the 100 or so little demons successfully stalled the Goblin King. Zhao Fu and the others quickly ran towards the valley not far away. The Goblin King slashed down with his scimitar, and a massive saber chi tore apart the last 3 little demons. The Goblin King continued to lead the 2,000 goblins toward Zhao Fu. After arriving at the valley, Zhao Fu relaxed. The situation was more than half resolved, and he immediately ordered his soldiers to start setting up. Soon, the Goblin King and 2,000 goblins arrived. The Goblin King led 2,000 goblins over, but the Goblin King still ferociously charged at Zhao Fu without any hesitation. They were not very intelligent, so they would not think about such things. Traces of ghostly chi rose up from the ground. The valley was quite narrow, and with the 2,000 goblins gathered together, the dark ghost world was able to completely cover all of the goblins. However, the dark ghost world didn't stop the Goblin King at all. The Goblin King charged out of the ghostly chi and gave off a ferocious aura as he continued to charge toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's eyes narrowed, and he continued to run deeper into the valley. He lured the Goblin King into the valley and left 300 soldiers to deal with the ordinary goblins. This was quite simple. The goblins had already been gathered together, and the valley was quite narrow. The soldiers continuously fired at the Goblin King from outside the ghostly chi, killing the goblins with their ballistae. After reaching the valley, Zhao Fu stood in the air and looked at the ferociously charging Goblin King. Zhao Fu wasn't afraid at all. The goblins had king's power, and so did Zhao Fu. Moreover, his king profession had reached stage 3, and he also had a city lord seal's power. As such, he was able to counterattack. Boom! Zhao Fu drew the sky demon sword and turned into a ray of black light as he shot towards the Goblin King. His sword gave off a chilling sword light as he slashed down with immense force. The Goblin King ferociously slashed out with his scimitar, sending out a sharp saber light. An explosion sounded out as the two massive forces collided, resulting in a shockwave that caused the ground to crack and some rocks and grass to fly into the air. Facing Zhao Fu's full-powered attack, the Goblin King took a step back. It was evident that the Goblin King's strength was inferior to Zhao Fu's. However, at that moment, the crown on the Goblin King's head gave off a faint golden light, and a noble and ferocious aura spread out. Immediately, the Goblin King seemed to receive a massive amount of power, and his aura exploded out as he sent Zhao Fu flying. Zhao Fu flew back dozens of meters before stopping himself, a trace of blood leaking out of his lips. At that moment, Zhao Fu's expression became quite serious because he found that the Goblin King's power came from that crown. The feeling that this crown gave him was similar to that of a king armament, but it was also different. If this really was a king armament, Zhao Fu would have to consider using his nation armament. After all, king armaments were simply too powerful. The mysterious skeleton in the underground region had a king armament shard, which had been enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. King armaments were split into different levels, and that king armament shard was only so powerful because it contained ancient king's power. The aura of the crown in front of him could not compare to that shard, but it was still complete. Who knew if it contained some sort of king's power? Zhao Fu decided not to use his nation armament for now and decided to test just how powerful this king armament was. Zhao Fu once again raised his sword, and a black golden seal giving off a massive aura appeared above Zhao Fu's head. Traces of black aura containing immense power descended and entered Zhao Fu's body. Now that the Qin Seal's power was fully unleashed, Zhao Fu stood in the air, his black cloak fluttering without any wind. His aura was terrifying to the extreme, and it seemed to be corporeal as it weighed down on everything around him. Some of the smaller rocks were crushed, and the wild grass in the surroundings were also crushed. Godly demonic thrust. Zhao Fu raised the sky demon sword high in the air, and it gave off a demonic, devouring light as the image of a sword appeared. The sword slashed downwards. Boom! Chapter 354. The Goblin King was sent flying and crashed into a cliff, causing it to collapse even further, sending up a thick cloud of dust and blocking Zhao Fu's vision. The surroundings fell silent, and after the dust settled, the Goblin King's body was buried by countless rocks, and not a single part of it was visible. It seemed that the battle had already concluded. However, was the Goblin King really that easy to deal with? Boom! A massive beast claw covered in chains suddenly appeared in the sky, and a shocking aura spread out, bringing with it a wild gale. As it slapped toward Zhao Fu, it seemed as if the sky was going to shatter. Zhao Fu was hit by the massive beast claw, and his body was like a pebble that had been thrown into the ground. He crashed into the ground, creating a 10-meter-wide crater. Zhao Fu coughed up a mouthful of blood, and at least 3 or 4 of his bones had been broken. Swish, swish, swish. At that moment, 10 or so black chains stretched out from the rubble and shot toward Zhao Fu, who was lying on the ground. At that moment, Zhao Fu was given a big fright, and he ignored his injuries and rolled to the side. The 10 or so chains ferociously shot into the ground where Zhao Fu had been lying. The chains pierced 1 meter into the ground, and if Zhao Fu hadn't dodged in time, he would have been pierced by them. The attack missed. The 10 or so chains automatically retracted, and the rubble that had buried the Goblin King exploded. The Goblin King was covered with blood, and he gave off a terrifying aura as he stood there. His fat body had become much thinner. At that moment, there was something off about the Goblin King. His eyes were lifeless, and he looked like a corpse. There were 3-meter-long chains on each of his wrists, and the golden crown on his head gave off a strange light. The golden crown seemed to have its own consciousness, and it was completely controlling the Goblin King's body. Bang, 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 muffled footsteps sounded out as the Goblin King raised his massive foot and charged at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu quickly got up from the ground. By now, the goblin was only 10 meters away from Zhao Fu. He waved his arm, and the chain extended out of his wrist and whipped toward Zhao Fu. The air seemed to explode from the whip. Zhao Fu raised his sword to block. Clang! When the chain struck the sky demon's sword, it gave off a metallic clang and created many sparks. Zhao Fu's arm felt slightly numb from the impact. He couldn't use the power of the chain's seal either, as if it had been sealed in his body by the beast's claw. Bang! The Goblin King was like a marionette, and he waved his other hand, causing a chain to ferociously whip toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu could only dodge to the side, dodging the attack. The iron chain struck the ground, shattering it and creating a 2-meter-wide crater. It could be seen how powerful it was. At that moment, Zhao Fu wanted to retreat. This Goblin King was not easy to deal with. It was more likely that the crown was not easy to deal with. However, if he ran, his 300 soldiers would all die, and he wouldn't be able to obtain that special city creation stone. Perhaps I can lure the Goblin King away and have the soldiers kill all of the goblins. After collecting the spoils of war, we can relocate the village. Zhao Fu felt that this was a good idea. Zhao Fu's main goal was to obtain that special city creation stone. As for the crown, it wasn't that Zhao Fu didn't want it, but that he wasn't confident in obtaining it. Even if he used his nation armament, he still wouldn't be confident. The mysterious skeleton had greatly affected Zhao Fu, and it had left a deep impression on him. If even a fragment was so powerful, how could a complete one not be powerful? Zhao Fu immediately turned into a ray of black light and flew to the side. The flight stone that he had obtained from the Divine Fish Festival was very effective, and his flying speed had greatly increased. In an instant, he had flown 1,000 meters away. However, the Goblin King seemed to know what Zhao Fu was thinking, and he pressed his hand against the ground. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a formless energy spread out from the Goblin King's hands, causing a 10-meter-wide crater to appear in the ground. Bang, bang, bang. 8 massive chains burst out of the ground and shot into the sky, forming 8 chains that formed a circle 10,000 meters around the Goblin King. Clang! The sound of chains being pulled taut sounded out, and the entire heavens and earth seemed to freeze as if they had been locked down. Zhao Fu, who had been flying to the side, suddenly lost his ability to fly and fell from the sky. Zhao Fu looked quite confused as he found that the space 10,000 meters around him had been locked down, making it impossible for him to fly or go further than 10,000 meters. The 8 chains had formed a powerful barrier, and if he couldn't break it, he wouldn't be able to escape. After using this attack, the Goblin King's mind seemed to have withered, and its fat body became a bit thinner. It seemed that this attack had taken a lot of its energy. This made Zhao Fu feel that he had a chance of winning, and he realized that this attack had been unleashed at the cost of the Goblin King's life. However, if the crown was powerful enough, would it have needed to sacrifice the Goblin King's life? Moreover, Zhao Fu realized that a king armament with no consciousness could be used by anyone. If a king armament had consciousness, it would need to recognize a master, and once it did, it would be completely loyal to its master. It was very rare for a king armament to devour its master. Finally, there was the beast claw and the chains. From the information that Zhao Fu had obtained from God Kerr, he realized that this was a creature that countered everything, and it was called a God-sealing beast. The God-sealing beast was incredibly powerful, and just like its name suggested, it could even seal godly spirits. It seemed that when he had used a godly skill, he had provoked something, causing the crown to suddenly devour its master. Now, Zhao Fu realized that this might not be a true king armament, and he let out a sigh of relief. He didn't even think about using his nation armament. As long as he could stall the Goblin King to death, he would win. Bang, bang, bang. The Goblin King stomped on the ground, giving off muffled thuds as it continued to rush at Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu's body suddenly disappeared. Zhao Fu had used the stealther necklace that he had obtained from the Divine Fish Festival. Adding on the fact that Zhao Fu had an assassin profession, he was able to completely hide his aura. The Goblin King was unable to discover Zhao Fu's position, so it looked around and tried to use its chains to whip around. By now, Zhao Fu was standing 100 meters away, and he didn't dare to get too close. If he got too close, he would definitely be discovered. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu once again took out an evil-crushing spear and vigorously activated it before throwing it at the Goblin King. The evil-crushing spear was one of Zhao Fu's most powerful long-range attacks. It was a pity that he had obtained them from the Ghost Festival, and he was unable to make them himself. As such, every time he used one, he would have one less. The Goblin King was given a big fright by the terrifying silver light, and it stretched out its fat hand, causing countless black chains to shoot out from its arm and collide with the silver light. Bang! Chapter 355. Bang! After blocking this attack, the Goblin King swung his other hand, sending a chain towards the place where the silver light had come from. As the chain hit the ground, it once again tore open a 2-meter-wide crater, but Zhao Fu had long since disappeared from his original position. Boom! Another silver ray of light containing powerful, evil-crushing power suddenly shot towards the Goblin King's back. Countless chains stretched out from the Goblin King's back, forming a massive, circular shield. When a silver ray of light hit the shield, a clanging sound rang out, and the silver ray of light continuously shrank before collapsing into motes of light and dissipating. At the same time, the Goblin King's fat body once again became a bit thinner, and he once again threw out a chain towards the silver ray of light. However, it was still unable to hit Zhao Fu. This time, Zhao Fu didn't attack again. Instead, he waited for a while before once again using his evil-crushing spear. This time, it was once again blocked by the Goblin King's chains. This continued for another 5 or 6 times. The Goblin King's fat body became much smaller, and his expression became even more withered. Zhao Fu only had 8 evil-crushing spears left, and Zhao Fu was quite reluctant to use them, so he switched to the Great Spirit Rock Bow. An arrow turned into a thin violet ray of light as it shot towards the Goblin King. Facing this arrow, the Goblin King didn't move at all, and the chains in his arms twisted, knocking the arrow away. This attack didn't consume much of the Goblin King's strength, so Zhao Fu could only use the Great Spirit Rock Bow's most powerful attack. A violet rock with a wingspan of 4 meters appeared from a place where no one was around, and it gave off a sharp aura as it shot towards the Goblin King's back. The Goblin King spun and stomped on the ground, causing the ground to crack as 10 or so chains shot out from the ground and pierced through the violet rock. The violet rock collapsed, and the arrow turned into dust, but another violet rock shot towards the Goblin King. Just like that, Zhao Fu continuously consumed the Goblin King's strength. Zhao Fu could afford to do this, as the Goblin King was using his life as the price. After a few more minutes, the Goblin King's body was much smaller than before, and he looked even more withered. His skin was wrinkled, and he looked quite sickly. At that moment, 3 more violet rocks rushed over. The Goblin King stretched out his hand, and 10 or so chains shot out, destroying the 3 violet rocks. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. If he continued to waste time like this, not only would he be able to kill the Goblin King, but his soldiers would also be able to finish off their battle and attack the village. The Goblin King knew that he couldn't keep wasting time like this, so he made an important decision. The Goblin King's body seemed to deflate like a balloon until it looked like only a layer of skin was left on his body, making him look quite terrifying. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu sensed an incredibly terrifying danger descend. He looked up and saw a terrifying black eye giving off an incredibly terrifying aura appear in the sky. This eye's pupil looked like it was made up of countless chains, and it was irregularly shaped. It gave off a god-killing intent that shook the heavens and caused all creatures to tremble in fear. At that moment, the heavens and earth seemed to fall silent, and all creatures felt an incredibly terrifying sense of danger descend. Swish, 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 chains shot out from the terrifying black eye. There were at least 10,000 of them, and they gave off immense power as they tore through the air and gave off an earth-piercing aura as they shot toward Zhao Fu's location. Zhao Fu's hair stood on end, and he directly used his nation armament's power, causing the image of a 100-meter-long shield to appear in front of him. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out, followed by the sound of countless meteors crashing into the ground. It was as if a mountain was collapsing, and the ground continuously trembled as if a disaster had descended. The soldiers in the distance felt these terrifying shockwaves, and they started to worry for Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked at the 8 chains, and a large amount of dust slowly settled. The chains had pierced into the ground, covering the surrounding 10,000 meters, creating a terrifying scene. Elsewhere, Zhao Fu lay on the ground, covered with blood. His arms, legs, and body had been pierced by 10 or so chains, and a legendary grade shield in front of him had also been pierced by a few chains. Zhao Fu's body seemed to have been nailed to the ground by countless chains. The inferior demon shield that he had unleashed before was instantly destroyed by the chains, and Zhao Fu could only take out a legendary grade shield. However, it was still unable to block the chains. Luckily, he was able to avoid being hit in any of his vitals, so he was unable to kill Zhao Fu and only heavily injured Zhao Fu. The chains around him started to slowly disappear because the Goblin King's body had long since become a desiccated corpse. As the wind lightly blew, it turned into dust and dissipated. Zhao Fu raised his hand with great difficulty and took out some healing medicinal pills before eating them. He then circulated his king's power to refine the medicinal pills and heal his injuries. After a while, Zhao Fu recovered a bit of his strength, and he received a system announcement that the soldiers had conquered and relocated the village. He felt quite relieved and climbed up from the ground with great difficulty. He looked at the golden crown that had fallen to the ground, and he slowly walked over and picked it up. This crown was actually quite exquisite, and there were some carvings on it. It was quite light, but there were some cracks on it, which ruined its beauty. King's Crown grade, damage stats, strength plus 10, intelligence plus 10, agility plus 10, constitution plus 10 description. This crown was forged from the body of a god-sealing beast and the skull of an emperor. It contains immense power and is an emperor heaven armament. Anyone who wears it can obtain a king's profession and wield king's power and god-sealing power. It has lost all of its power and needs to collect king's aura to recover. After looking at its stats, Zhao Fu looked quite shocked. He had never thought that it would be an emperor heaven armament. Because he had obtained a lot of information from God Kerr, Zhao Fu knew what an Emperor Heaven armament was. It was an extremely rare item in the entire world, and it completely surpassed godly items. Zhao Fu couldn't believe that he had obtained such an item so easily. However, this Emperor Heaven armament had lost all of its power, and it had become the lowest grade of equipment, which was gray grade. It was damaged grade equipment and couldn't even compare to white grade equipment. However, even though it was gray grade, Its stats were no weaker than gold-grade equipment, and the person who wore it could obtain a king's profession. However, this king's profession couldn't grow because it was a part of the equipment. It could allow a person to obtain a king's profession and wield king's power and God-sealing power. This was enough to show how powerful this Emperor Heaven armament was. Chapter 356. King's aura referred to a king's special aura. The king here didn't necessarily have to be someone with a king profession, but any creature related to a king could be counted. For example, the Gray Wolf King, the Black Forest Horse King, the Wild Dog King, the Wild Boar King, the Water Buffalo King. Any creature with a king in their name would have king's aura. The stronger they were, the more king's aura they would have. On the other hand, the weaker they were, the less king's aura they would have. For example, the Wild Dog King and the Wild Chicken King didn't have much king's aura, but at least they had it and could be of some use. It wasn't just these creatures. There were also some people who didn't necessarily have a king profession. As long as they had a king's bloodline or were a king's legatee, they could be counted. In other words, descendants of kings' bloodlines or legatees of kingdoms would all have king's aura. The way to obtain king's aura was to kill others or subdue them. However, it was stated that killing these people would give more king's aura. Zhao Fu felt that this king's aura was like fate. It was the purest trace of fate that could lead one to becoming a king, and the king's crown required this sort of fate to be repaired. Killing them was equivalent to ending their lives and erasing everything about them. Their fate would also completely disappear, so the king's aura obtained from killing them would be greater. In the future, Zhao Fu would be able to kill creatures with a king in their name. Legatees of kingdoms and their families would be good targets to kill, and he would be able to obtain a lot of king's aura. However, this was an Emperor Heaven armament, so it required an ocean of king's aura. Zhao Fu didn't know when it would be completely repaired. If this item fell into someone else's hands, they would definitely become a main character and obtain a heaven-defying ability. Your Majesty, please forgive this subordinate for being late. At that moment, Qin's soldiers, who had relocated the goblin village, rushed over. Seeing the collapsed mountain and the holes in the ground, they felt quite shocked. They quickly rushed over to Zhao Fu's side, and seeing Zhao Fu covered in blood, they immediately knelt on the ground and begged for forgiveness. All of you rise. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and put the king's crown away. He had the soldiers rise and asked for the special city creation stone. Looking at this dark silver cube, it was indeed different from a normal city creation stone, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Zhao Fu first looked at its stats. Arad, city creation stone. A city creation stone from the Arad world. It can create a silver-grade goblin village. As expected, the description was different from normal city creation stones. The Arad World City Creation Stones revealed a lot of useful information, and Zhao Fu, who had the information from the demon god, understood this. However, there was no need for him to say anything, as this was already destined. Another thing that made Zhao Fu happy was that Zhao Fu had collected 1,200 sword essences. Outside the historical remnant, Zhao Fu had killed many hobgoblins and had collected many sword essences. Now that he had killed many goblins, he had finally collected enough sword essences. Now, it was time to fuse them into the Silver Lake Immortal Sword. Zhao Fu took out the sword essences, and they started to tremble and resonate with each other as they gave off a faint light. Suddenly, the sword essences shot into the sky and twinkled like stars, and the image of a massive lake gradually appeared in the sky. This lake was very beautiful and very big. One couldn't see the end of it. The surface of the lake was as calm as a mirror without a single ripple. There was grass growing on the lakeside, as well as some orange wildflowers. The lake and the lakeside complemented each other, forming a beautiful picture. As soon as the lake formed, all of the spiritual chi in the historical remnant started to gather, and the star-like sword essences started to fuse together. Finally, a silver sword appeared in the sky, giving off a water-like aura as it slowly descended from the sky. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and caught the silver sword. This silver sword was quite long, about 1 meter long, and it was 2 fingers wide. The hilt looked like a water immortal, and it looked quite exquisite. Silver Lake Immortal Sword. Grade: Legendary. Stats: Strength plus 20, Intelligence plus 20, Agility plus 15, Constitution plus 19. Description: one of the Silver Immortal's 7 pieces of equipment, and it contains legacy power. Can obtain the Silver Immortal Swordsman profession. Silver Immortal Swordsman. A growth profession that can control the Silver Immortal's most powerful sword skills and can inherit the martial domain, the Silver Lake realm. After looking at this profession's stats, Zhao Fu found that it was quite powerful. Just based on its martial conception, it was incredibly powerful. After all, only those with stage 7 cultivation or above could comprehend this source power. Zhao Fu looked at the stats and found that this profession was quite powerful. The Silver Immortal Swordsman profession could directly inherit the Silver Lake realm, and it did not require one to comprehend it. However, this profession also had a sword, which was not suitable for Zhao Fu. After all, this was one of the 7 pieces of equipment, and the other 6 pieces of equipment had to be given to the other 6 people. It was evident that this was for his subordinates, and it was not suitable for a king. As such, Zhao Fu put the sword away and would find a suitable owner for it in the future. This was the end of the historical remnant exploration. Now that Zhao Fu had been heavily injured, he would not be able to recover without a few days of rest, so the historical remnant exploration could only continue here. After returning to Qin City, Zhao Fu mustered up a bit of his strength and went to the Heaven and Earth refining formation. He placed a black goblin's corpse on the formation. What Zhao Fu was worried about the most was whether or not he could refine this black goblin's corpse. If he could, it would be incredibly important to Qin City, and he would be able to nurture a large number of Stage 1 or even Stage 2 soldiers. Zhao Fu started to feel nervous, and he activated the Heaven and Earth refining formation. A formless energy grabbed the goblin's corpse into the air, and the goblin's flesh and blood continuously melted until an eerie skeleton appeared. At the same time, 2 orbs of light floated out of the skeleton, and Zhao Fu waved his hand, causing the 2 orbs of light to float into his hand. The first was a grade orb, and the second was a Stage 1 blood god pill. Zhao Fu felt quite delighted, and he placed a minotaur's corpse on the formation, obtaining a Stage 2 blood god pill. Finally, Zhao Fu refined a cat demon's corpse, obtaining many raising stones. Now, Zhao Fu was completely at ease, and he returned to his room to recover from his injuries. He also prepared to form a special scouting party to kill historical remnant creatures and provide Stage 1 and Stage 2 corpses for Qin City. Chapter 357. After returning to the real world, Zhao Fu felt a sharp pain in his stomach. He was famished. He drank some water to temporarily stave off his hunger before asking his bodyguard to bring him some food. At that moment, a notification sounded out on his phone, and Zhao Fu found that there were a few missed calls from Wu Qingyang, as well as a text message. Zhao Fu picked it up and saw that it was Wu Qingyang asking him how he was getting along with Dong Junhua. Zhao Fu thought about it and felt that Dong Junhua had a good impression of him. His personality was quite good, and he could gather a group of people. As such, Zhao Fu honestly replied. Wu Qingyang had not replied yet, so she was most likely in the Heaven Awakened world. At that moment, the bodyguard brought back some food, and Zhao Fu started to eat as he opened his computer and opened the Heaven Awakened world for him. Many things had happened recently, but it was still quite chaotic. Another issue had become quite apparent, which was the conflict between historical figures and their descendants. Historical figures were, of course, loyal to their rulers, and they wanted their descendants to be loyal to their rulers. However, times had changed, and there was no such thing as loyalty in ancient times. In fact, many historical figures had been persecuted by their rulers, such as by Qi and Shangyang, who had been killed by their rulers. Their descendants might not be loyal to their rulers, and they might even hate them. The Great Ming Dynasty was one of the most prominent. Its historical figures were much smaller than the other dynasties, and their descendants hated the Great Ming Dynasty. This was mainly because the Ming Dynasty's founder, Zhu Yuanzhang, had killed almost all of his meritorious officials. Moreover, some of the people who had been loyal to him had died without a complete corpse. Every dynasty had killed meritorious officials, and the Great Ming Dynasty was the most severe. The descendants of these famous officials were quite capable, but because of historical reasons, they had to make all sorts of choices. Zhao Fu had seen many of these things on the forum, and Zhao Fu had also found some information about Meng Tian's descendants. Zhao Fu decided to let them deal with these things themselves. Another piece of news that caused Zhao Fu to frown was that the descendant of the overlord of Chu, Xiangyu, was the one that Zhao Fu hated the most in all of China's history. Perhaps Zhao Fu didn't have much enmity towards Xiangyu, as they weren't even from the same era. In many people's hearts, Xiangyu was a great hero and was worshipped by many. However, Zhao Fu hated him to the bone and wanted to kill him. "You annihilated my great Qin Empire, killed 200,000 of my soldiers, burned my Pang Palace, and slaughtered my clansmen. Although Chu only has 3 clans, the one who will destroy Qin must be Chu. Today, the one who will destroy Chu must be Qin." Regardless of the Xiang clan's men or women, young or old, not a single one will be spared. Zhao Fu's eyes were cold. Even his body was cold. This was not a subjective decision made by Zhao Fu. He did not hate Xiangyu personally, but because he had obtained the inheritance of the Qin Empire, his hatred for Xiangyu was unforgettable, and he would not stop until he was dead. Now that he saw the news about Xiangyu's descendants, Zhao Fu's blood began to boil automatically. He could not help but hate Xiangyu. The Chu kingdom established by Xiangyu was also blessed by a lot of luck, because the Qin Empire was destroyed mainly because of Xiangyu. Liu Bang only reaped the benefits without doing anything. Xiangyu, on the other hand, was a famous general in the history of Huaxia. However, he was too headstrong, conceited, and soft-hearted. He could be a good general, but he could not be a king. He walked the path of tyranny, but he was defeated by Liu Bang on the path of kingship. At first, Zhao Fu did not leak any information about Xiangyu's descendants because he knew that 2 empires were watching him. Not only did the Qin Empire want to kill him, but the Great Han Empire also wanted to kill him. 2 of the 5 ancient kingdoms were mortal enemies, so he did not dare to leak any information. It was only because he had destroyed a few large families in the region and become the most powerful player faction in the region that the news had leaked out. Zhao Fu looked around and found that there was still a long way to go before he could fight to the death with the Qin Empire. Zhao Fu was quite confident in Zhao Fu, and he believed that Xiangyu's descendants had the ability to do so. At the same time, Zhao Fu felt a bit more pressure. After looking at the other news, Zhao Fu was quite surprised to find that a person called Gu Qingyang had caught the eye of his system main city lord. He had been chosen as the city lord's son-in-law and had become the next city lord's successor. Even something like this is possible. Gu Qingyang was quite lucky. He had obtained a system main city for free, and it had happened so early. With a system main city as his backing, his future would be limitless. It was said that the city lord's daughter was as beautiful as a celestial goddess, and she was one of the top beauties in the region. Zhao Fu wondered what the city lord thought of Gu Qingyang. As for Gu Qingyang's information, there was nothing special about him. He was just a descendant of a wealthy family who had fallen from grace. Now, Gu Qingyang had joined a nation legacy and obtained its protection. Otherwise, if his information was leaked, he would have died. This news made Zhao Fu feel quite envious. Not only did he have a beautiful wife, but he also had a system main city. Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't envious, but he was quite moved. Next, there was news that someone was preparing to create an ancient beauty rankings. For example, this was a ranking that only women could be on, and they had to have beauty that could bring disaster to countries and people. Apart from beauty, there was another condition, which was that these women had to be descendants of famous ancient beauties, so it was called the Ancient Beauties ranking. The number 1 beauty was Nu Lu, a descendant of Nuwa. She was rated as the most loving beauty, and she gave off a motherly aura. The number 2 beauty was De Fei, a descendant of Deji. She was rated as the most bewitching beauty, and she had a charm that could bewitch all living things. The number 3 beauty was Wu Qingyang, a descendant of Wu Zetian. She was rated as the most domineering beauty, and she gave off an innate domineering aura. The number 4 beauty was Shi Yuyin, a descendant of Shi Shi. She was rated as the most gentle beauty, and she gave off a gentle aura that made everyone want to take pity on her. The number 5 beauty was Yang Yuyin, a descendant of Yang Guifei. She was rated as the most voluptuous beauty, and her alluring figure caused all men to bathe in flames. The number 6 beauty was Wang Shihan, a descendant of Wang Zhaojun. She was rated as the most intelligent beauty, and she was a virtuous wife and loving mother that all men wanted to marry. The number 7 beauty was Du Xiaoyu, a descendant of Jiaochan. She was rated as the most beautiful beauty, and she gave off a soul-stirring beauty. The number 8 beauty was Zhao Hanyue, a descendant of Zhao Fian. She was rated as the most adept at dancing, and she could perform countless enchanting dances. The number 9 beauty was Bao Xing, a descendant of Bao Si. She was rated as the most beautiful beauty with the most beautiful smile, and her smile could topple cities. Chapter 358. There were 100 or so women on the Ancient Beauties rankings, and Zhao Fu had only looked at the top 10. All of them had perfectly inherited the genes of their ancestors, and they were either outstanding beauties or incredibly skilled. However, the Ancient Beauties rankings did not include all of the beauties in the world. They were only rankings in China and not in the world. Moreover, there were some women whose looks were not inferior to the beauties on the rankings, such as the superstar Su Yuyan. There were also some that Zhao Fu had not seen before. Of the top 10 women, Zhao Fu only recognized Wu Qingyang. With Wu Qingyang's peerless beauty, it was only natural that she was ranked 3rd. Zhao Fu did not spend too much time on the Ancient Beauties rankings and continued to look at other information on the forum. He looked at the Heaven's Pride rankings and found that the people at the top had not changed much, while the people at the bottom had constantly changed. The person at the top was Qin's legatee. Zhao Fu could imagine just what sort of position Qin held in everyone's hearts. Because of this, Qin had to be more low-profile in the future and not draw too much attention. Zhao Fu also saw something big, which was that a few small countries had staged coups and successfully seized power, making the real world even more dangerous. There was also news about the most powerful country in the real world, America. America had established itself in the modern era and did not have any legacies. Even though it was powerful in the real world, it was quite weak in the Heaven Awakened world. As such, they had set their sights on the previous rulers of America, which were the Native Americans. The Indians were indigenous to America, and they had many indigenous legacies. However, many of them had been plundered by the United States. History was repeating itself, and one civilization was invading another. Zhao Fu looked at it with interest before looking at other information. There was nothing special about it, so he finished his food and re-entered the Heaven Awakened world. After returning to the Heaven Awakened world, Zhao Fu's body had recovered a bit. Now, Qin's population was 650,000, and he had 120,000 soldiers. Most of the new soldiers were orcs, and Zhao Fu had obtained 220,000 orcs. He could not just not use them. The beastmen were all physically strong and were slightly stronger than the humans. They were also more ferocious and made good soldiers. It was a pity that out of the 120,000 soldiers, only 50,000 or so had Stage 1 cultivation. All of the blood god pills had been given to these soldiers, causing them to have at least Stage 0 to 7 cultivation. However, the blood god pills had already been used up. As for all of the generals, they had broken through to Stage 2. Because Zhao Fu had given out the Stage 2 blood god pills from the Minotaur corpses, the generals all broke through to Stage 2. Stage 2 blood god pills had the same effect as Stage 1 blood god pills. Now, as long as the soldiers' cultivations were a bit higher, Zhao Fu would be able to attack Heavenstone City. Zhao Fu still remembered the enmity from that day. Heavenstone City had to be destroyed, and the Sher family's father and son had to be killed. Zhao Fu felt that he had enough soldiers, but their cultivations were still a bit weak. As such, attacking Heavenstone City would have to wait for now. Right now, the most important thing for Qin was still the Blood God pills. Zhao Fu had already formed a historical remnant exploration team of 1,500 people, and he had also prepared the historical remnant medallion. The goblins weren't much of a threat within the historical remnant, and the minotaurs and cat demons had both reached stage 2, making it difficult for ordinary soldiers to deal with them. If Zhao Fu was with them, there would be very few casualties, but if someone else led the team, there would be many casualties. The historical remnant was incredibly big, and it would take a lot of time to explore it all at once. Zhao Fu couldn't spend all of his time on this, as he would definitely have other things to take care of. At that moment, a piece of good news came. It was about the Stage 1 ballistae, and the gnomes had successfully developed them. After such a long time, the Stage 1 ballistae had finally been developed. This was a large piece of machinery, and it took a long time to develop. Zhao Fu had recovered a trace of his strength, and even though he was a bit weak, he had no problems walking. He went to the gnome research facility and saw a ferocious ballista in front of him. This ballista wasn't very different from the previous ballistae, but its appearance was very different. It was much more refined, and it had 2 bowstrings, allowing it to fire 2 bolts at once. It was 1 less than before, but its destructive power was much greater. Normal ballistae could already deal a lot of damage. Against goblins, a single bolt would be enough to pierce through their bodies and kill them in 1 shot. However, against minotaurs, it was impossible to kill them in 1 shot. After all, the minotaur's defenses and life force were quite high. With this Stage 1 ballista, this problem could be solved. Stage 2 ballistae were enough to kill minotaurs as long as they didn't move at all. Every single part of the Stage 1 ballista required blue-grade materials. Whether it was the body, bowstrings, bolts, or arrowheads, they all required blue-grade materials in order to unleash the true power of Stage 1 ballista. However, just blue-gray materials were not a big deal to Qin. Zhao Fu immediately gave the order to start manufacturing Stage 1 ballistae, and he had the gnomes research even more advanced ballistae. After dealing with the minotaurs, there was still the matter of the cat demons. The cat demons were too fast, and without something to suppress them, they would be in great danger. Zhao Fu immediately ordered people to find something to suppress them, because in the future, Zhao Fu wouldn't be personally leading the team. A day later, Zhao Fu's body had mostly recovered. During this time, he had eaten many medicinal pills, and Asani had used advanced healing skills. At that moment, the soldiers reported that they had discovered an advanced magic skill called Gravity Elemental. It could release gravity within a certain range, and it could suppress anything within that range. This could suppress the cat demons and replace Zhao Fu. However, this magic skill was quite rare and expensive, but Zhao Fu still bought it, and the historical remnant exploration team set out. Zhao Fu ordered them to explore the outer regions of the historical remnant and not go deeper. Zhao Fu wasn't sure what was inside, and he felt that it would be quite dangerous. When he had the opportunity, Zhao Fu would go and explore it. "Your Majesty, this subordinate has caught a wild boar king and has come to report." A soldier walked in and half knelt as he respectfully reported. Hearing this, a trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and he followed the soldiers to an empty area. There was a massive wooden cage at the center of the empty area, and there was a 150-kilogram wild boar moving about restlessly. It was filled with savagery, and it kept ramming against the wooden cage, trying to escape. Zhao Fu looked at the wild boar king. Its stats weren't very high, and it only had Stage 1 strength. Zhao Fu took out a golden crown. Chapter 359. Holding the king's crown, Zhao Fu pointed with his finger, and a sharp black sword light shot into the wild boar king's forehead. Immediately, A muffled explosion sounded out as the wild boar king's massive body powerlessly fell to the ground, and a finger-sized hole appeared on its forehead, from which blood slowly flowed out. At the same time, the king's crown in Zhao Fu's hand gave off a formless energy that covered the wild boar king's corpse. A blood-red thread floated up from the wild boar king's corpse and was absorbed into the king's crown. Zhao Fu immediately sensed a slight change in the king's crown. Even though it was only a slight change, it was enough to repair the king's crown, and that blood-red thread was most likely King's aura. Now that Zhao Fu had a large number of soldiers, he didn't have to personally go and find the creatures with kings in their names. He could directly send soldiers to capture them and bring them back for Zhao Fu to kill. This way, Zhao Fu wouldn't have to go and find them himself. Following this, Zhao Fu ordered his soldiers to capture all sorts of creatures. Following this, Zhao Fu brought a hobgoblin to an empty area and gave him a dark silver city creation stone so that he could establish a village. The hobgoblin obeyed and went to the center of the empty area. He pressed the dark silver cube into the ground, and a dark silver wave of light spread out as the image of a few dilapidated buildings gradually appeared. This village had been an advanced village before, and now that it had been relocated, it had fallen back to a basic village. The dilapidated buildings also needed to be repaired. After making the hobgoblin the village chief, Zhao Fu went to the barracks. There wasn't a single profession change stone steel in the barracks, making Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. He took out 4 profession change stone steels and placed them in the barracks. The 4 profession change stone steels gave off a light that fused with the barracks, and Zhao Fu received a system announcement that he could change professions. There were 100 blunt-handed goblins, 30 hurling goblins, 10 hobgoblins, and 2 green-red goblins. The 4 profession change stone steels all had a limit on the number of soldiers that could advance. Even though there weren't many at the moment, the profession change stone steels could level up with the village. As the village leveled up, the number of profession change stone steels would also increase. Of the 4 professions, Zhao Fu only cared about the hobgoblins and the green-red goblins. The goblin rock throwers and goblins were simply too weak. Hobgoblins could use different types of weapons, and they were a decent melee profession. The blue-red goblins were a magic profession, and in the Heaven Awakened world, magic professions were quite rare. Zhao Fu had always wanted to create a mage team. After looking through the goblin village's information, Zhao Fu took some goblins from other villages and had them join the goblin village to change professions. At the same time, Zhao Fu assigned the goblin soldiers to the task of finding creatures with the title of king. They would be able to obtain EXP from killing different creatures and level up the goblin village. Moreover, the goblins would be quite strong, and they would be able to capture creatures with the title of king. At this moment, Guo Binglin walked up, cupped his hands, and reported, "Your Highness, this subordinate has something to report to you." Hearing this, Zhao Fu gestured for Guo Binglin to continue. However, just as Guo Binglin was about to speak, Zhao Fu sensed something, and his expression became serious as he looked up at the sky. A black star had appeared in the sky, and it gave off an intense black cross-shaped light. The appearance of this black star in the blue sky was quite abnormal, as it was a general star, the Army Destroyer star. At that moment, it wasn't just Zhao Fu. All of the legatees, espers, and all of China's people noticed the Army Destroyer star in the sky. The Army Destroyer star gave off an intense black light, and it gave off a conquering aura that covered the entire sky. The pressure it gave off made it impossible not to notice it. The Army Destroyer star was a general star, and it was a star that would normally appear in a top-tier general. However, this Army Destroyer star wasn't a general star returning to one's life, but a general star entering one's life. Within a small mountain village, an honest-looking young man anxiously paced back and forth outside a house. Within the house, a woman's pained cry sounded out, and a middle-aged woman's comforting voice could be heard as she said, "Big Chin, hold on for a bit longer. The child is about to be born." These were all ordinary people, so they wouldn't notice that the entire house was filled with a black aura. This was a black, baleful aura that gave off a conquering aura as if it was the aura of thousands of soldiers. All of the ghosts in the surrounding 10,000 meters were filled with terror and started to run in all directions. The black star in the sky continuously gave off intense starlight, and it gave off a terrifying might, causing the weather to change. At that moment, the baby was slowly born. The instant that the baby was born, a black pillar of starlight descended from the sky and shined on the newborn baby's body. Countless traces of black aura flooded into the baby's body, causing the baby to give off a black light. Of course, this was something that ordinary people couldn't see. When a young man outside heard the baby's cries, a look of delight appeared on his face. Following this, a middle-aged woman came out holding a baby boy and smiled as she said, "Congratulations! It's a boy." The honest-looking young man, called the Isheng, also gave a happy smile and vigorously nodded as he carefully hugged the baby boy. Looking at the swaddling baby boy, he gave a gratified smile. As the baby boy was born, the black star disappeared into the sky, and the abnormal signs also disappeared. Everyone looked away. This was the first time that a general star had been born in the Heaven-Awakened world, and it was the Army Destroyer star. This was a great general talent, and in the future he would definitely become a general whose name could shake the world. Can you calculate the exact location? Zhao Fu looked up at the black star in the sky and asked Xianru, who had appeared by his side. It wasn't just Zhao Fu who wanted such a general. Anyone would want such a general, as he wouldn't be any weaker than a historical general, and having such a general would be equivalent to having another historical general. Right now, the general stars and fate of historical generals were temporarily sealed, and they would only be unsealed after the Heaven-Awakened world devoured the real world. As such, this general star would have an advantage over anyone else in the early stages. Xianru lowered her head apologetically as she replied, "Your Majesty, I can only calculate that it's to the southwest of the central continent. I can only deduce that he's in the southwest of the central continent. Those who have a general star in their fate have a great amount of fate, so I can't deduce anything." Hearing this, Zhao Fu sighed. The central continent is at the very center of the Midland continent, and it's quite far away from Qin City. Even if I know the exact location of this general star, I won't be able to obtain it. Suddenly. Chapter 360. Guo Binglin once again lowered his head and cupped his hands as he said, "Your Majesty, this subordinate has once again discovered the whereabouts of a basic city." Hearing this, Zhao Fu's frown disappeared, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face as he started to ask about the situation in detail. The orc city in the Forest of Horrors had already been conquered by Qin. Leveling up a city to a great city required 3 basic cities and 6 basic towns, which was much more difficult than before. First of all, 3 basic cities were already quite difficult to conquer. Zhao Fu had long since ordered people to search for information about the other basic cities. There were definitely fewer basic cities than system main cities, as most regions didn't have basic cities. After all, basic cities were war machines, and after condensing a city lord seal, they would have immense power and would be able to dominate a region. For example, the orc city in the Forest of Horrors occupied an area, and it faced off against the other 3 system main cities. If a region had 4 system main cities, it would be impossible for there to be any basic cities. After all of the resources and fate were split between the 4 system main cities. Only in a region with 3 or 2 system main cities would there be basic cities. Most basic cities were inhabited by outlanders, as the indigenous residents were all system main cities. However, the Xiongnu, Khitans, and Tufan tribes had the same starting conditions as players, and they might even be a bit later. As such, there wouldn't be any city villages for now. After asking Guo Binglin, Zhao Fu found out that this was a kobold city, and it was located 2 regions away from the Forest of Horrors. Zhao Fu ordered his people to make all sorts of preparations. Of course, Zhao Fu wasn't going to directly attack it, but he was going to establish a friendly relationship with it. After resting for another day, Zhao Fu's injuries were almost completely healed. He took a large amount of equipment from the Orc City, which had shattered steel iron added to it, and many hundred origin pills added to hidden evil, and headed to this region. Guo Binglin had already investigated this kobold city, and he gave it to Zhao Fu. This kobold city was called Westpan City, and it was a bit weaker than the Orc City. There were roughly 200,000 kobolds and 50,000 soldiers, and the city lord was called Westpan. Zhao Fu used the teleportation channel that Guo Binglin had set up and arrived in front of Westpan City. Westpan City was a stone city, and its architecture was the same as the Orc cities. It was quite crude, but there were some differences. Compared to the Orc City, Westpan City was a bit more detailed, and its defenses were much stronger. There were also many watchtowers. The kobolds were not as powerful as the Orc City, and they weren't as aggressive, so they were more focused on defense. After coming to the city gates, Zhao Fu said, "I'm a spice merchant." They didn't notice at all of Zhao Fu and Zhao, and they saw Zhao and Zhao Fu, and they saw Zhao and they and of. They did not feel anything about Zhao Fu's arrival at all, and it was as if it was nothing out of the ordinary. Zhao Fu found a place and started to wait. It wasn't that strange for Zhao Fu to be trading with Outlanders, as everything was based on profit. As long as both sides benefited, anything could happen. What's more, Westpan City produced a very special type of spice, which is a top-notch spice. It was incredibly valuable, and adding on the fact that other things could be traded with Westpan City, many people were willing to take the risk to trade with Zhao Fu. Most of the people in the room were like this. However, this was something that would offend a system main city, so everyone was quite careful. A while later, a round-faced kobold walked out of the room and smiled as he said, "Everyone, the salon spice and other materials have been prepared. You could trade them now, and the highest bidder will win." The kobold brought out a box that was 1 meter long and 30 centimeters wide. Even before the box was opened, it gave off an intoxicating smell. After the box was opened, the intoxicating smell filled the entire room, and it seemed as if it wouldn't dissipate. Zhao Fu looked inside and saw that there was a white powder within the box, which was most likely the salon spice. "Everyone, let's stick to the old rules." After the box was opened, a haughty voice sounded out. It was one of the few people who were able to sit. The people who were able to sit here most likely had great backgrounds, and the person who had spoken first was most likely from the most powerful faction in the area. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken so arrogantly and confidently. The others were all from different factions, and after hearing the person's words, they nodded and split the salon spice according to the old rules. Every gram of salon spice was more expensive than gold, and ordinary people couldn't compete with these people. These people were all from the most powerful factions in the area, and no one dared to compete with them. As such, these people completely ignored everyone else. Everyone else only felt envious. If they brought the salon spice back to the system main city and sold it to the government, the price would be 10 times higher, and a single box would be worth 10,000 or so gold coins. They couldn't compete with these large factions, and they had only come for some other things in Westpan City. These things would be quite beneficial to them if they could bring them back. The 6 people sitting had already discussed how to split the salon spice, while the kobold sat at the head of the table and smiled the entire time. He didn't say anything because every transaction brought massive benefits to Westpan City, so he didn't want to interfere. As long as there were enough benefits, it was fine. "Sir Bellin, let's discuss and proceed with the transaction." The haughty voice once again sounded out. Even though he called Bellin Sir, it didn't sound very respectful. Bellin was the kobold, and he didn't mind this person's tone and was about to agree. "Wait!" A voice sounded out from the corner, causing everyone to look over. It was the person who had come in last. What is he trying to do? Everyone felt quite confused. At that moment, facing countless people's gazes, Zhao Fu walked up and said, "I want all of the salon spice." Everyone present was sent into an uproar. This person didn't want to participate in the distribution of the salon spice, but wanted to take all of it. This was simply too domineering. The other factions had already split the salon spice, and he didn't put the other factions in his eyes at all. Immediately, the The people from the other factions' gazes became cold, and the haughty voice mocked. Which country bumpkin dares to steal from my Wu family? Don't you know who I am? Another person coldly laughed. Nobody should know how strong they are. If they're too stupid, they might die in the wilderness. Chapter 361. Perhaps because of how powerful their faction was, no one dared to go against them. As such, these people were most likely used to doing as they pleased, and they were too arrogant and unbridled to speak like this. Cobalt Bellin continued to smile and did not say anything. He didn't care about whether these humans lived or died. He would trade with whoever offered him the most benefits. Bellin could tell that Zhao Fu was interested, so he didn't give the order to chase Zhao Fu away. Seeing this, the others watched on with interest, hoping that the two sides would fight as fiercely as possible. After all, they had long since been dissatisfied with the 6 great factions, so they felt quite comfortable just looking at them. However, none of them had any intentions of meddling, as Zhao Fu's life or death had nothing to do with them. Even if he died, he deserved it. When Zhao Fu heard these words, he coldly harumphed and said with a trace of killing intent, "Do you want to die?" His words did not take them seriously at all. It was as if he was talking to an ant. The 6 of them were instantly enraged. They were high and mighty, so how could they endure this? They all stood up and wanted to kill this reckless fool in front of them to vent the hatred in their hearts. "Kneel!" A cold voice suddenly sounded out, accompanied by a supreme aura that caused the air in the room to freeze. The 6 people felt a massive wave of power weigh down on their bodies, and even though they circulated their full power, they were unable to resist at all. Their legs weakened, and they heavily knelt on the ground. These 6 people only had stage 1 cultivation, and Zhao Fu had killed many of them. However, they still dared to act so impudently in front of Zhao Fu. If others treated him courteously, Zhao Fu would return the favor, but if he didn't, then Zhao Fu wouldn't be polite either. Facing Zhao Fu's terrifying aura, everyone present felt quite shocked. Even though this aura wasn't targeted at them, they could sense how powerful it was and that it was enough to suppress everyone present. Bellin, who was sitting at the top, was also quite shocked. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful, and he could rival a stage 3 expert. In actuality, Zhao Fu hadn't used his full power yet, as Zhao Fu himself was no weaker than a stage 4 expert. If he added on his City Lord seal, these people would be heavily injured even if they didn't die. However, Zhao Fu had only released a portion of his strength, as if he had released all of it, the kobolds would have been on guard. That wasn't why Zhao Fu had come. The 6 people kneeling on the ground had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful. Now that they were kneeling in front of Zhao Fu, they felt as if they would rather die than live. This was a humiliation to them, and it would be a humiliation that they would never be able to forget for the rest of their lives. "Arg!" The arrogant voice came from the person called Wu Long. His face looked as if it had been cut by a knife, and he roared as he mustered all of his strength. His face became incredibly savage, and the veins on his body bulged as he desperately tried to resist Zhao Fu's suppression. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed as he increased his strength by 4 times and pressed down on Wu Long's body. "Kacha!" The sound of bones breaking could be heard as Wu Long howled. The bones in his legs had been broken, and he lay on the ground as he hatefully looked at Zhao Fu. "Today, you've humiliated me so much. In the future, I'll make sure you die a horrible death, and the Wu family won't let you off either. I'll kill everyone related to you." Pooh! A black sword light flashed, chopping off Wu Long's head, causing blood to spurt everywhere. Because the other 5 people were quite close, they were splashed with blood. Only after feeling the warm blood on their faces did they come back to their senses. Zhao Fu wasn't someone to be trifled with, and he could kill them with a single thought. They started to feel quite afraid. The people in the surroundings looked quite confused. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would directly kill someone in front of Cobalt Bellin. Zhao Fu didn't put the kobolds in his eyes at all. The scene fell into a deathly silence as everyone looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's body gave off a dense killing intent, and even though he had killed someone, he didn't seem affected at all. His gaze fell on the 5 people kneeling on the ground as he said, "I want all of the Ceylon spice. Do you have any objections?" The 5 people on the ground were covered by this massive killing intent, and their bodies trembled. They felt terror in their hearts, and they hurriedly shook their heads, expressing that they had no objections and didn't dare to say anything. "In the future, I'll buy out everything in Westpan City, and I'll pay 10 times the price. None of you need to come here in the future." Following this, Zhao Fu spoke in a commanding tone, causing everyone present to feel quite angry. They had come to Westpan City to trade with the kobolds and make huge profits. Now, not only could they not eat the Ceylon spice, but Zhao Fu also wouldn't even let them drink the soup. Even the 6 major factions wouldn't dare to do this to them, as it would incite countless factions to retaliate. However, Zhao Fu had done this. "What? Do you have any objections?" As soon as that cold and dignified voice sounded out, a massive aura covered everyone's bodies. Zhao Fu could sense that these people were displeased, and he looked at them. His threat couldn't be any more obvious. If they dared to say a single word, he would kill them all. Only after feeling this massive aura did everyone realize how terrifying this power was. They felt a massive pressure weighing down on them, and the cold killing intent caused cold sweat to appear on their backs. Even though they were displeased, they didn't dare to say anything. Right now, Zhao Fu wanted to sell a large amount of equipment and medicinal pills to Westpan City. As long as Westpan City used their medicinal pills and equipment, they wouldn't be able to resist at all, and Zhao Fu would be able to take down Westpan City, just like he had taken down the Orc City. Even though exchanging for Ceylon spice would allow them to sell equipment and medicinal pills to Westpan City, they could exchange for many other things as well. What's more, they would be able to sell a large amount of equipment and medicinal pills to Westpan City. As such, Zhao Fu wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He didn't need to give any of the people present any face, nor would he give them any benefits. He even used the excuse of paying 10 times the price as an excuse to not arouse any suspicions. Sitting at the top, Bellin grinned. He didn't plan to pursue what Zhao Fu had done because if he sold all of Westpan City's items at 10 times the price, he would make a massive profit. This profit was enough for Bellin to not care about what Zhao Fu did. With a super rich person like Zhao Fu, he didn't need to care about anyone else. Facing Zhao Fu's domineering attitude, the others didn't dare to say anything or reveal any of their expressions. They were afraid that if Zhao Fu was displeased, he would kill them all. At that moment, they saw Bellin's delighted expression, seeming to be completely satisfied with the price that Zhao Fu had offered. He didn't pursue what Zhao Fu had done, so they could only dejectedly leave. Chapter 362. Esteemed guest, apart from Ceylon spice, Westpan City also has many other good things, such as ores and furs. I'm sure you'll be very satisfied. After everyone left, Bellin smiled and introduced the various items to Zhao Fu. On the surface, Zhao Fu listened attentively, but in actuality, he didn't really care about these things. After all, his main goal was to sell equipment and medicinal pills to Westpan City. After hearing Bellin's introduction, Zhao Fu took this opportunity to take out some medicinal pills and equipment to trade. This surprised Bellin, and he looked at the equipment and smelled the medicinal pills. Immediately, a look of delight appeared on his face. Zhao Fu was actually using such good equipment and medicinal pills to trade. This meant that Westpan City's strength would greatly increase. If Zhao Fu used such good equipment and medicinal pills to trade, it would be a massive amount, and it would be a long-term trade. Bellin wasn't sure if Zhao Fu had that much equipment and medicinal pills, and he didn't want it all to be gone after just one trade. Esteemed guest, will you be using equipment and medicinal pills to trade in the future? Bellin asked. Because he had obtained such a massive profit, his tone was quite friendly and kind to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu understood Bellin's intentions and calmly replied that he would be using equipment and medicinal pills to trade in the future. After hearing this, Bellin felt quite delighted. If he could obtain such a large amount of equipment and medicinal pills, his status in Westpan City would gradually rise. After all, equipment and medicinal pills were incredibly important to Westpan City. Right now, he was only an internal affairs officer of Westpan City, and as long as he could obtain these equipment and medicinal pills, he would definitely be rewarded by the city lord, and his position would definitely rise. It's all thanks to the humans fighting and scheming against each other that this foolish rich man was willing to pay 10 times the original price. Bellin inwardly rejoiced. Sir Bellin, this lowly one also needs some slaves, and there are no restrictions on races. I wonder if you can sell them here. I'll buy them at a high price. On one hand, Zhao Fu wanted to continue selling equipment and medicinal pills to Westpan City. But on the other hand, he wanted to use Westpan City to obtain a large number of people. Just like the Orc City, he wanted to use every valuable place in Westpan City, or else it would be a waste. Slaves? Bellin slightly frowned. No matter what kind of city it was, population was very important. The kobolds didn't have the habit of enslaving other races, and they weren't very aggressive, so they didn't attack many villages. After conquering a village, they usually wouldn't leave anyone alive. Basically, they would kill them all, cutting the weeds and pulling out the roots. However, Zhao Fu said he wanted slaves, and Bellin couldn't make the decision. He was just an internal affairs officer and had been appointed to trade with these humans. He couldn't participate in military affairs. However, when Zhao Fu said that he would be willing to pay a high price, Bellin felt quite moved. He thought about it and sent a soldier to ask his superiors. After receiving a reply, he smiled and said, "Esteemed guest, we can exchange these slaves, but the price will be much higher." Zhao Fu's heart did not change. The greedier the kobolds were, the better. This was exactly what Zhao Fu wanted. It might seem like Zhao Fu was at a disadvantage, but Westpan City was slowly falling into Zhao Fu's hands. That's no problem. If Westpan City can provide high-quality slaves, it's fine even if the price is a bit higher. Zhao Fu didn't seem to mind at all, and he spoke in an overbearing manner. Bellin was delighted, but he was also quite curious about Zhao Fu's identity. He wasn't weak at all, and for him to be able to take out so many equipment and medicinal pills, his identity definitely wasn't simple. However, looking at the equipment and medicinal pills, Bellin didn't think too much about Zhao Fu's identity. As long as he could provide Westpan City with benefits, it didn't matter who he was. Following this, Bellin and Zhao Fu officially began the trade. Both sides had their own needs, and they happily concluded the trade. Elsewhere, the various factions returned to their headquarters full of resentment. They were incredibly furious at Zhao Fu for keeping everything for himself, and the other 6 factions also gnashed their teeth in hatred at Zhao Fu. He had humiliated their people so much. They couldn't swallow this humiliation. If they could swallow this humiliation, they wouldn't be one of the 6 major factions. Adding on the fact that many of the other factions felt resentment toward Zhao Fu, they gathered their experts to kill Zhao Fu together. Now, there were 10,000 or so people, and none of them were weak. Isn't that person very powerful? He dares to act so domineeringly in front of so many of us. We'll definitely let him see their true strength. It would be best to make him kneel and apologize before killing him. Perhaps he had many good things on him, or else he wouldn't have offered 10 times the price. After all, if he offered 10 times the price, he wouldn't be able to obtain much. After completing the trade, Zhao Fu left Westpan City and flew towards the teleportation channel. The teleportation channel couldn't be constructed near Westpan City, as no city would allow unknown teleportation channels to be constructed near their own city. As such, the teleportation channel was 10 or so kilometers away. However, when Zhao Fu was halfway there, countless arrows tore through the air and shot towards him. Seeing so many arrows, even Zhao Fu felt quite startled. He immediately unleashed his king's domain to block some of the arrows, but because there were simply too many arrows, Zhao Fu could only land on the ground. Following this, people rushed out from the forest and surrounded Zhao Fu. There were at least 10,000 people, but Zhao Fu's expression didn't change much. At that moment, The leaders of the 6 factions walked out and looked at Zhao Fu with ill intentions. One of them loudly laughed as he said, "You dare to kill someone from my Wu family. Today will be the day you die. Kowtow to me, and I'll let you die more comfortably. That's right. Kneel down and call me Grandpa 3 times, and I'll let you die with a full corpse. Don't think that just because you're strong, you're invincible. We have 10,000 people here, and all of them are experts. You'd best know what's good for you." Another person said coldly, "That's right. Kowtow to each of us and call us Grandpa a few times. This is the result of offending us." Everyone else loudly laughed. Zhao Fu stood there, a cold glint in his eyes. Even though there were 10,000 people in front of him, most of them hadn't broken through to stage 1 yet. With Zhao Fu's strength, he could deal with them, and if he used his City Lord Seal's power, no one here would be able to stop him. In fact, Zhao Fu could even kill everyone here. However, dealing with 10,000 people would be quite troublesome. Moreover, they were so close to Westpan City, so if he used his City Lord Seal, Westpan City Lord would definitely sense it. However, Zhao Fu had other ways to deal with these people, so he wasn't afraid of them at all. "You want me to kneel?" Chapter 363. Hearing that Zhao Fu dared to call them trash despite facing so many of them, everyone felt quite angry. They immediately raised their weapons and rushed at Zhao Fu, vowing to chop Zhao Fu into mincemeat. The scene of 10,000 or so people charging was quite majestic, but at that moment, Zhao Fu's body suddenly disappeared. This caused everyone to stop what they were doing and feel quite confused. Why had Zhao Fu disappeared? However, at that moment, a 10 or so meter long black arc of light suddenly flashed out, causing blood and severed limbs to fly everywhere. 30 or so people instantly died, and their corpses fell to the ground with confused expressions. Before they could react, they had died. This sudden change caused everyone to feel quite shocked, and no one was able to react in time. However, another 2 sharp rays of light flashed out, causing blood to splatter everywhere, taking away hundreds of lives. No one was able to resist, and their bodies were split in half. Such a terrifying and strange scene caused everyone to feel quite afraid and nervous, and they started to retreat. At that moment, another black arc of light flashed out and flew out like a gust of wind, cutting off dozens of people's heads. The cuts were incredibly neat, and dozens of headless corpses fell to the ground. This scene caused everyone's legs to go weak, but as people from the modern world who had seen many things, they finally reacted and cried out, "He's using something to become invisible. Everyone, be careful." Zhao Fu was using stealth power, but even if they found out that Zhao Fu could become invisible, they didn't have much power to stop Zhao Fu. The slaughter continued. Black arcs of light continuously shot out, cutting people's bodies apart. Some people shot arrows at the places where the attacks had come from, but they couldn't keep up with Zhao Fu's speed. Zhao Fu didn't just attack a single spot. He was like a ghost, randomly killing people. More and more corpses fell to the ground, and the stench of blood spread out. The aura of death covered everyone, and the situation quickly changed. The 10,000 people started to fear Zhao Fu. At this moment, someone shouted, "Everyone, quickly form a group. Those with shields block the outside and protect those with attacking methods. Let's work together." Immediately, everyone began to move, forming groups. Those with shields defended with all their might, while the archers drew their bows and looked around vigilantly. If there were any strange movements, they would attack. This method might work on ordinary people, but it wouldn't work on Zhao Fu because the difference in strength was too great. Zhao Fu's current strength wasn't any weaker than a Type 4 powerhouse. Dealing with these people who hadn't even reached Type 1 was a piece of cake. A huge black sword light suddenly appeared, and Zhao Fu's figure also appeared in front of a team of several hundred people. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the massive black sword light slashed through the shield wall. The massive sword light shot into the crowd, and countless people's bodies were torn apart by the sword light. Blood and flesh flew everywhere. creating a bloody scene. In just an instant, hundreds of people had died, and the atmosphere became incredibly oppressive. This crushed everyone's confidence. The difference in strength was simply too great, and they couldn't do anything to Zhao Fu at all. Everyone started to run for their lives in terror, as staying here would mean death. Seeing these countless people running, Zhao Fu coldly smiled and looked at the team of 6 people. His body blurred as he appeared in front of them and said coldly, "Didn't you want me to kneel?" Seeing Zhao Fu appear in front of them, the 6 people were given a big fright and yelled, "He's appeared! Everyone kill him!" However, by now, everyone was terrified of Zhao Fu, and they were running everywhere. The scene was in chaos, and no one obeyed their orders. As such, only 10 or so of them rushed up. Looking at the 10 or so people rushing over, Zhao Fu stood there and slashed out with the sky demon sword. A thin arc of light slashed out, seeming to split the air apart. "Arc!" Cries sounded out as the 10 or so people's legs were cut off, and they fell to the ground, giving off pained cries. Hearing these cries, the others were so scared that they ran even faster. Zhao Fu slowly walked forwards, and the Wu family's leader's expression became savage. Even though his legs had been cut off, he crawled on the ground and grabbed his saber to hack at Zhao Fu. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking could be heard, accompanied by a howl. The Wu family's leader's arm had been broken by Zhao Fu's foot. Zhao Fu coldly looked at this and vigorously stepped on the Wu family's leader's head, pressing it to the ground as he said, "What did you want me to call you before? Call you father? I'll definitely kill your entire family." Having his head pressed to the ground by Zhao Fu, the Wu family's leader not only felt pain, but also humiliation, causing him to loudly roar. Zhao Fu's expression became cold as countless traces of black aura came out from under his feet and spread out, covering the Wu family's leader's body. "Arg!" Pained cries sounded out as the Wu family's leader felt as if his body was being cut by countless blades, and the pain was simply unbearable. "Kill me if you dare." The Wu family's leader once again roared. He simply could not endure this pain. Even though he would lose everything if he died, it would not be a true death, so the Wu family's leader did not want to endure this pain. "What did you want me to call you before?" Zhao Fu's cold voice sounded out. The Ying family's leader did not say anything and endured the pain. He regretted coming to make trouble for Zhao Fu. Wu Long was his little brother, and after hearing that his little brother had been humiliated to death, he had gathered with the other factions and thought that they would be able to kill Zhao Fu with 10,000 people. However, they had never thought that Zhao Fu would have such means and would be able to easily defeat 10,000 people. They could not bring themselves to say such humiliating words. In that instant, the black aura covering the Wu family's leader's body entered his body, and the Wu family's leader felt as if his flesh was being cut into pieces. Even his soul felt as if it was being cut into pieces, and the Wu family's leader's face became completely twisted as he howled in pain. These howls caused the 10 or so people lying on the ground to feel a chill down their backs. They felt that this pain was 10 or so times worse than theirs. "What did you want me to call you before?" Zhao Fu's cold voice once again sounded out. The Wu family's leader could not bear this kind of pain at all, and he only wanted to die. He did not care about his dignity as he continuously cried, "Grandpa! Grandpa! Grandpa! Hurry up and kill me." At that moment, Zhao Fu pulled back his foot, and the black aura that had entered the Wu family's leader's body was also pulled back by Zhao Fu. The Wu family's leader collapsed on the ground, and he seemed to be on his last breath. "What did you want me to call you before?" Zhao Fu's cold voice once again sounded out, but he looked at the others. Sensing that cold gaze, the 10 or so people felt terror within their hearts, but they could not bring themselves to say such humiliating words. Zhao Fu stepped forwards, and 10 or so traces of black aura came out of his foot and entered the 10 or so people's bodies. Pained cries sounded out, and in the end, everyone gave in and called out such humiliating words. Chapter 364. These 10 or so people were the leaders of the 10 or so largest factions in the region. If he could control them and use them as chess pieces, they would be a decent force when attacking system main cities in the future. If he wanted to level up Qin Town into a royal city, he would have to attack many system main cities. Players wouldn't die true deaths, and there were many of them, so it would be a waste not to use them. As such, Zhao Fu thought about it and made his decision. He then looked at the 10 or so people on the ground, who looked like they had been tortured, and he took out the royal wood sword as he said, "I'll give you a chance to submit to me. If you're willing to submit, you'll receive unimaginable benefits." The 10 or so people on the ground hated Zhao Fu to death. He had tortured them to death, and he had even forced them to call him Grandpa. However, now that Zhao Fu wanted them to submit to him, of course they didn't want to. However, they had experienced the pain from before, and they felt a deep fear toward Zhao Fu. They didn't dare to refuse and could only silently lie on the ground. "Just kill us," the Wu family's leader said weakly. Right now, they wanted to die quickly and didn't want to be tortured by Zhao Fu anymore. "Do you really want to die so badly? Others might want to submit to me, but they might not have a chance." Zhao Fu's voice became dignified and filled with the aura of a king. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the 10 or so people on the ground realized that this person was also a player like them. So why did he have such great power? They started to feel curious about Zhao Fu's identity, but they still didn't want to submit to Zhao Fu. "Are you really not willing to submit to me? Qin Town?" Zhao Fu's voice became cold. However, the 10 or so people on the ground were given a big fright. "Qin Town?" Hearing these two forbidden words, the 10 or so people on the ground couldn't help but feel shocked. To factions like them, Qin Town was a terrifying existence from hell. Could it be that he was talking about the legendary Qin Town? In that case, it was possible that the person in front of them was that terrifying Legatee Qin Town. If it wasn't for Legatee Qin Town, how could he have such power and be so vicious? "You are really Prince Qin." The Wu clan's clan leader had a trace of reverence in his eyes as he looked at Zhao Fu. To them, Prince Qin was someone who already stood on the throne. He was incomparably noble and supreme. "What do you think? Who in this world dares to use my name indiscriminately?" Zhao Fu acknowledged his identity, because if he didn't reveal some information, it would be impossible to subdue these people. Zhao Fu understood this very well. Hearing Zhao Fu admit it, the 10 or so people's attitudes instantly changed, and they became incredibly respectful and lowly. "I'm willing to submit." The head of the Wu clan was the first to speak. He didn't care about what had happened before. What was dignity? It was humiliating to call someone else grandpa, but it was an honor to be able to call Qin DZ grandpa. This was the reality. If they could ride on Qin Di's coattails, their aristocratic families would have a solid guarantee in the future. Yes, we're also willing to submit to your majesty." The others hurriedly expressed their willingness to submit to Qin Town. This was incredibly beneficial to them, and they even forgot about the pain of their legs being severed. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite satisfied and sent his king's power into the royal wood sword. Countless crystalline green lines stretched out towards the 10 or so pairs of legs and wrapped around them before reconnecting them. The 10 or so people's legs that had been severed by Zhao Fu all recovered, and Zhao Fu threw 10 or so bottles of medicinal pills to them. These weren't healing medicinal pills, but hidden evil. Zhao Fu didn't trust them, and he was only using them to attack system main cities in the future. As such, he had left behind some backup plans. The 10 or so people guessed that there was something wrong with these medicinal pills, but they still swallowed them. They understood that they definitely wouldn't be able to gain Prince Qin Town's trust after what had just happened. If they wanted Qin Town's protection, they would have to pay a price, and this was all within reason. "You can all leave. I'll let you know if anything happens." Zhao Fu watched as they obediently swallowed all of the hidden evil and gave some orders. Because all of the equipment and medicinal pills had been used to trade, he didn't give them any benefits for now. Following this, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared over the horizon. The 10 or so people excitedly returned to their own factions, making everyone else feel quite surprised. "Why aren't they dead yet? I heard that their legs have been severed, but it seems that they've recovered and they seemed to be in a good mood. Following this, the 10 or so people told the core members of the factions that they had submitted to Qin Town, and the entire faction was filled with joy. Qin Town was an unreachable existence to them, and joining Qin Town would bring them unimaginable benefits. In actuality, if Zhao Fu stood out with Qin Town's prestige, he would be able to gather a large group of people. However, if there were too many people, Zhao Fu wouldn't be able to control them. After all, even Zhao Fu couldn't guarantee the absolute loyalty of these factions. After returning to Qin Town, Zhao Fu took care of some other matters. Now that Qin Town had settled down, the only thing he lacked was time. After all, there were many things that required time to be done. For example, the dragon egg would take another 2 months to hatch. The soldiers needed time to raise their cultivation before they could attack Heavenstone City, and Westpan City also needed time to consume hidden evil. Zhao Fu didn't have much to do, so he left the internal affairs to Li Si and Shangyang. Now that Shangyang had joined, Li Si's burden was much lighter, and Zhao Fu felt much more relaxed. Zhao Fu took the one-world rod and went to a small creek. He sat under a willow tree and started to fish while cultivating. There were a few beautiful female attendants waiting respectfully by his side. Suddenly, Zhao Fu, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, frowned and immediately closed his eyes, entering a state of cultivation. A muffled bang sounded out as if something had been broken. Zhao Fu's body trembled as an even more powerful energy burst forth from his body. Zhao Fu had finally broken through to Stage 1 and entered Stage 2. Zhao Fu continued to cultivate for a while, stabilizing his cultivation. He then took out a blood god pill and breathed in it. This was a Stage 3 blood god pill, and it could only be refined from Stage 3 corpse. After consuming this blood god pill, a massive wave of cultivation energy spread through his body, and Zhao Fu quickly circulated his dantian to refine this energy. At the same time, Zhao Fu's cultivation once again rose, Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3. Finally, Zhao Fu's cultivation rose to Stage 2 to 4. The blood god pill's effects were incredibly powerful, and it had instantly raised his cultivation by 4 stages. However, now, Zhao Fu would have to cultivate by himself. This was because the blood god pill could only be used once. If he used it without limit, Zhao Fu would be able to create a group of peerless experts. Zhao Fu let out a breath of impure air and opened his eyes. Before he knew it, it was already night, and the female attendants had already lit the lanterns. At that moment, something seemed to tug on his fishing line, and Zhao Fu raised his fishing rod. A small silver fish appeared in front of him. It was most likely a rare fish. "Your Majesty, I have something to report." Wang Ergu, who had been waiting respectfully, came up and cupped his hands. Chapter 365. This town was not in the Forest of Horrors, but in the nearby 100 Bamboo Forest. This information was sent out by a player. One of the players had been lost for a few days, and he had been attracted by a loud sound. He had followed this sound and found the town. The loud sound just then had been the sound of the town leveling up. Following this, the player returned to the system main city and sold the location of the town for a high price. Right now, the locations of villages in the wilderness were quite valuable, and many factions would purchase them at a high price. After all, as long as they could take down a village, they would be able to obtain population, resources, and money, which could generate massive profits. However, this person had already sold the information to a few large factions, so Zhao Fu had to quickly gather soldiers. If the large factions allied together, it would be very easy for them to take down the town. After all, this town had just leveled up, and whether it was in terms of numbers or defense, it was weaker than an ordinary town. A large faction would have tens of thousands of people, and if they joined together, they could send 60,000 to 70,000 soldiers to attack the town. The town would not be able to defend at all. This town only had a population of 20,000 or so, and there were less than 4,000 soldiers. Adding on the fact that the town walls had not been built yet, it would be quite easy to take down the town. Now, What was in front of them was speed, and the real threat was the large factions. How long has this been going on? Zhao Fu understood that time was of the essence. He changed the one-world rod back into the royal wood sword and quickly walked toward the main hall. Wang Ergu quickly followed behind Zhao Fu and replied, "Your Highness, an hour has passed since we received the news, so the other powers should have received the news at the same time as us. Then how many forces did that person sell this matter to? Also, do you know where the major forces are located? Also, apart from these major powers, is that person under control? Is he still selling this information?" Zhao Fu asked a few questions as he walked. Wang Ergu closely followed behind Zhao Fu, and the female attendants also followed behind them. Soon, Wang Ergu returned and said, "This matter has been made known to 4 major factions, 3 of which belong to one system main city and the remaining 1 to another. This subordinate has sent people to investigate their factions' locations. Also, the person who sold the information has escaped back to the real world. This subordinate has ordered people to wait for him there. If he appears in the heaven-awakened world, we will immediately control him or kill him." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and ordered, "Recall all soldiers. Gather all of the Evernight members together." "Yes." Wang Ergu obeyed and quickly left a pass on Zhao Fu's orders. Hearing the order, the generals quickly returned to Qin City. The members of the Eternal Dark faction also rushed back to Qin City. The Lord of Eternal Night was mainly made up of Qin assassins. It was a department that Zhao Fu had established a long time ago. Other than collecting intelligence, it was also responsible for carrying out assassination missions. After nurturing them for so long, it was time for them to show their usefulness. Torches were lit in an open space, illuminating the surroundings. Many people wearing black hoods and giving off strange auras appeared in the open space, and there were more than 6,000 of them. The 12 people were already standing in front of them. They were the 12 people who had obtained the assassin's legacy. Zhao Fu and Bai Qi had also arrived after discussing their strategy. When everyone saw Zhao Fu, they all half-knelt and called out in unison, "Your Highness!" Zhao Fu looked at them and didn't waste any more words. He said, "Right now, you only have one mission: kill everyone." Elsewhere, the 4 factions gathered their people and prepared to work together to take down this town. This town was incredibly valuable, and just the city creation stone alone would be worth an astronomical price. It was already 9 p.m., and they still hadn't gathered their people. Zhao Fu didn't know if the other 3 factions were ready yet, and he didn't want to devour that town without waiting for him. The Rin family's leader felt quite anxious, and his eyelids had been twitching for some reason. A skinny middle-aged man from the Skin and Bone gang also felt quite anxious, saying, "Old 3, why are there so few people? Why are there so few people here? What's going on? That town has massive benefits, so hurry up and don't let anything happen to it." A big man from the 100 Harmony Guild with tattoos also loudly said, "Hurry up. Time waits for no one. If we take down that town, your elder's going to invite you to Red Street to find a few women to play with." Red Street was a small alleyway, and most of the people here were special service workers. They brought their professions from the real world into the heaven-awakened world, and no one cared about them here. The massive rewards attracted many women, and every system main city had a small alleyway like this. An old man from the Li family also ordered everyone to hurry up. Their main goal was to leak this information and let others know. If that happened, they might not be able to obtain anything. Back then, when they had heard about this, they had wanted to kill the person who had sold the information. It was a pity that that person had been prepared and had escaped. Who knew who else he had sold the information to? As such, the 4 factions didn't have much of a disagreement, and they decided to take down the town first before splitting the spoils. Now, the 4 factions were all gathering people at their bases in the system main cities. After what had happened with the Great Shun Town, no one dared to casually leak the location of their villages. Only core members who were completely loyal could enter. As such, most of the villages were made up of indigenous residents, and only a small number of core players could enter. Ordinary players couldn't enter the villages, and they could only stay at the bases in the system main cities. As such, they were gathering people at the system main cities. This saved Zhao Fu the trouble of finding their bases. Zhao Fu had already taken 6,000 or so assassins to 100 Bamboo, and Bai Qi was also quickly gathering soldiers. Zhao Fu and Bai Qi planned to split into two groups, with Zhao Fu leading one group to take down the true threat of the town, which was the four factions. Zhao Fu planned to wipe out the four factions, but Zhao Fu had other plans. Zhao Fu had already planted Heaven's Choice as a chess piece in the Forest of Horrors, and he was preparing to control the players in the Forest of Horrors to attack the city. After taking control of the Forest of Horrors, he would expand to the other regions. Little Valley was in Battle City, and Zhao Fu had Gania make preparations. He would be the cornerstone for Zhao Fu to take control of Little Valley in the future. In East Green, Heavenstone City had to be taken down. Zhao Fu had prepared this plan for a long time, and it wasn't just for revenge. Zhao Fu had a City Lord Seal Shard, so it would be much easier to deal with Heavenstone City. At the same time, Mountain Willow Town would be a cornerstone. Now, only 100 Bamboo and Red Plum Plains were left. Zhao Fu planned to destroy these four large factions and establish his own faction in preparation for the future. Chapter 366. The night gradually darkened, and the sky was filled with stars. It was another beautiful night, and 100 Bamboo's four major factions quickly gathered people in order to prevent anything from happening in the town. However, they did not know that something had already happened and massive danger was approaching. Seeing that no one had come, the Ren family's leader naturally felt quite worried, and his eyelids continuously twitched as he sensed something. The surroundings suddenly quietened down. There was not a single sound, and the scene became a little strange. At that moment, the Ren family's leader found that his residence was surrounded by a gray fog. What was going on? Because they were within the system main city, the Ren family's leader did not take this to heart and thought that it was normal. After all, if something happened, the system main city would take care of it without them needing to. The system main city definitely would not allow large-scale battles to occur, and as soon as they did, they would suppress them with blood. With the system main city's protection, the Ren family's leader felt quite at ease. However, as time passed, the gray fog around the encampment became denser and denser, and the surrounding atmosphere became strange and eerie. The Ren family's head sensed that something was off, and there seemed to be something terrifying moving about in the surrounding darkness. "Someone hurry!" The Ren family's leader cried out in fear, but no one responded. The surroundings were deathly silent, and the Ren family's leader hurriedly ran outside and saw an incredibly bloody scene. There were corpses all over the ground, and they all had expressions of terror or confusion on their faces. Their throats had all been slit, and it was as if they had been killed in a single blow. Blood spurted everywhere, and the stench of blood could make anyone feel nauseous. Ghostly figures suddenly appeared in the empty ground, wearing black hoods and holding two blood-stained hidden blades. They gave off cold lights and gave off icy auras, making them look like Grim Reapers. The head of the Ren clan immediately reacted and turned around to escape. However, two figures suddenly appeared beside him without a sound. These two figures were both wearing black hoods, but they were quite petite and looked like young girls. What was surprising was that they had cat-like tails behind them. The Ren family's leader felt quite startled, and the moment he died was the moment of his death. Two silver arcs of light flashed as a head rolled to the ground, and the headless corpse also fell to the ground, causing blood to flow all over the ground. The two cat race young women stood there. After going through Great Sheen's continuous training, the two sisters had greatly changed. They did not seem as childish anymore and had become more mature. "Everyone, please plunder everything of value and check to see if there are any survivors. His Highness's order is to kill everyone." The older sister, Lei Sai, quickly gave the order to the others. Her voice carried a hint of killing intent. The younger sister, Ram, stood behind the older sister. She still looked a little introverted. Although there was a massacre at the Ren family's encampment, no one nearby noticed it at all. This was because Zhao Fu had not only used the dark ghost world to isolate the encampment, but he had also set up a soundproof barrier so that no one could detect it. The Bone and Skin Gang had also experienced such a massacre. Originally, many people had rushed to the encampment. Suddenly, the ghost chi filled the air, and some of them lost contact. Those who were in the encampment and those who were surrounded by the gray fog also panicked. At the same time, no one dared to step into the gray fog, because those who dared to do so would lose all contact with them. Qin's assassins, who were hiding in the darkness, took advantage of the chaos and started to act. Black figures flashed, and cold lights flashed as blood flew into the air and people fell to the ground. These assassins attacked incredibly quickly and mercilessly. They wanted to kill with a single blow and not leave anyone alive. The difference in strength between the two sides was simply too great. Zhao Fu's assassin profession was not ordinary, and adding on Zhao Fu's nurturing and all sorts of stat buffs, how could these ordinary people defeat Qin's assassins? Very quickly, the 5,000 people that were gathered were instantly slaughtered, leaving only corpses on the ground. The leader of the Bone and Skin Gang also killed a skinny man, but he was also killed by a large sword that pierced through his chest. Tuoba Qing drew back her sword and started to clean up the battlefield with Wu Qing and the others, and they continued to hunt down the people who had come to the encampment. At the same time, the Hunter Harmony Gang experienced the same thing. The people outside were continuously killed by Great Qin's assassins, and the tattooed big man within the room furiously glared at the skinny figure in front of him as he roared, "Who are you? Why did you destroy the 100 Harmony Gang?" "Because His Majesty wants you to die." Little Shah's speech was still somewhat incoherent. After he finished speaking, he threw himself at the tattooed man. The tattooed big man was greatly startled, and he did not know who this His Majesty was. Facing this child, the tattooed big man felt that he was not a match for him. After all, Little Shah's cultivation had long since broken through level 2, and adding on his killing techniques, his strength was incredibly terrifying. Little Shah was incredibly fast, and he arrived before the tattooed big man in the blink of an eye. The tattooed big man gripped his saber and slashed at Little Shah, but it was a pity that in Little Shah's eyes, the tattooed big man was already a dead man. After reaching the tattooed big man, Little Shah's attack speed was many times that of the tattooed big man's. He gripped the blood-red dagger in his hand and slashed out, instantly slicing off the tattooed big man's right arm. The tattooed big man howled as he clenched his left fist and punched at Little Shah. Little Shah still had a wooden expression on his face, and he spun around, slicing off the arm that was attacking him. After losing both of his arms, the tattooed big man felt quite afraid and understood that he was not a match for Little Shah. He turned and ran, but a blood-red line passed through his legs. Ark! The tattooed big man's legs were sliced off, and he crashed to the ground and howled. Looking at Little Shah walking over, the tattooed big man begged in terror, "Please spare me. I'll give you anything you want." "No," His Majesty said, "not a single one of them will be left alive." Little Shah obediently replied. Hearing Little Shah's words, the tattooed big man understood that Little Shah would not spare him. At the same time, he felt incredibly confused. Just when had he offended such a terrifying person? Just who was the His Majesty that he spoke of? Little Shah had no idea, but anyone who could nurture a group of people who were like killing machines was definitely not simple. The tattooed big man instinctively did not want to die, and he wriggled on the ground and crawled to the side, looking quite wretched. Little Shah calmly watched this scene and did not show any mercy. He gripped his dagger and slashed out, and a blood-red light shot out and pierced through the tattooed big man's head, killing him just like that. In the Finally family's residence, the ground was also covered with corpses. The Li family's family leader had been nailed to a wall by a spear. Chapter 367. Within an elegant-looking restaurant, Zhao Fu sat by the window and there were many good dishes on the table. Zhao Fu picked up a cup of wine and took a sip before looking at the scenery outside the window. How are things going? Zhao Fu had already investigated the four faction strength, and there was nothing to fear. As such, Zhao Fu did not personally act, and he sat within his family's restaurant to control the situation in case anything unexpected happened. Your Majesty, everything has been taken care of. None of the four factions' encampments were left alive, but some people sensed that something was off and did not return to their encampments. This subordinate has sent people to hunt them down. Guo Binglin gave a detailed report of the situation. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and looked into the distance as he said, I wonder how things are with Bai Qi's side. Quickly advance. We have to reach the town as soon as possible to prevent anything unexpected from happening. Bai Qi loudly ordered. This time, Bai Qi brought 100,000 soldiers and hurried towards the town. After traveling for 4 or so hours, they finally saw the newly leveled town. The town was not very big compared to the other towns, and there was a simple wooden fence around it. The walls were only 2 meters tall and did not pose much of a defense. As expected, this was a town that had just leveled up. Bai Qi did not hesitate to order the 100,000 soldiers to surround the town. The 100,000 soldiers flooded towards the town, giving off a powerful aura and giving off a powerful sense of suppression that shook the surrounding 10 kilometers. By now, it was around 2 or 3 a.m., and most of the town's residents were asleep. However, there were soldiers on night watch, and when they saw the flood of enemies, they were given a big fright and immediately yelled, "Enemy attack!" The yells caused the town to wake up, and lanterns were lit. The residents started to panic, and hearing those yells, it was evident that the enemy was quite terrifying. A valiant-looking young man holding a spear rushed towards the town walls. He was called Sun Wu, and he was the town's mayor. The town had only just leveled up, and everything was not complete yet. Relatively speaking, the town was quite weak, and it was only slightly better than an advanced village. If the town walls were built properly, it would have a sense of security. Only by increasing its population would it become stronger. For the past few days, he had been very vigilant because the most basic city walls had not been built yet. If the enemy attacked, it would be impossible to defend, so he had to be careful. Now that he heard that there was an enemy attack, the thing that Sun Wu had been worried about had indeed happened. However, hearing the countless soldiers' terrified cries, Sun Wu's heart became serious. What sort of enemy had come to make his soldiers so terrified? However, when he arrived next to the city walls, he couldn't help but feel shocked. He froze on the spot and gulped. There was an army of at least 100,000 soldiers surrounding the town. How is this possible? Could it be that the system faction had made a move against him? However, seeing that there were all sorts of races among these soldiers, that shouldn't be the case. However, the auras they gave off were not any weaker than the system faction soldiers. Invite your mayor out. When Sun Wu saw a commander riding a large black horse and exuding a powerful, icy aura walk out, Sun Wu's first feeling was that the person in front of him was not ordinary. He was definitely a person of great authority. After thinking about it, Sun Wu walked out. Facing this army of 100,000 soldiers, he wouldn't be able to fight back at all. Even if he included the residents, he only had 20,000 or so people. His cultivation and equipment were inferior to the enemy's, and his defenses weren't even complete. How was he supposed to fight back? If the other side had attacked before, his town would have been breached in an instant. As such, Sun Wu did not have to worry about anything else. Sir, when will it be? Sun Wu deeply breathed in and calmed himself down, making sure that his aura was not any weaker than the person in front of him. Being able to remain so calm despite being surrounded by 100,000 soldiers, Bai Qi looked at Sun Wu in admiration and said confidently, "The outcome of this battle is quite clear. I'm sure you know that many people know where your town is, and you won't be able to defend it. If you submit to Great Qin, not only will you obtain a great opportunity, but your residents will also be able to live in peace." This town was incredibly easy for Bai Qi, and he could easily take it down. As such, he decided to subdue it instead of just attacking it. Bai Qi was called the god of killing, and had killed countless people in the past. However, he was not someone who killed indiscriminately. He killed with a purpose. More importantly, he was a general. Hearing Bai Qi's words, Sun Wu thought to himself, no wonder he had no choice but to attack. However, Bai Qi had already given him enough face. With the 100,000 soldiers' strength, they would be able to easily flatten the town, and Sun Wu believed that Bai Qi would be able to do so. There was also something else that shocked him. When had his town's location been leaked? If many people knew about it, then it would indeed be very dangerous for his town to be discovered by others. Then, there was the great Qin Empire that the other party had mentioned. Even though he was only a mayor of a small town, he knew some things. It did not have a kingdom yet, and the other party was most likely talking about the otherworld legatee. From the 100,000 soldiers that were not inferior to the system main city soldiers, this faction was incredibly powerful and even terrifying. However, if he were to surrender so easily, Sun Wu felt quite hesitant and said, "Sir, can you give me some time to consider?" Bai Qi thought for a moment before replying, "I can give you half an hour to consider. If you give me more than half an hour, I'll start attacking." Sun Wu nodded and turned to gather all of the town's higher-ups for a discussion. Bai Qi ordered all of his soldiers to be on guard in case anything unexpected happened, and he also made preparations to attack the town. Time gradually passed. Wang Jian rode on a black forest horse and smiled as he said, "General Bai, do you think this person will surrender?" Bai Qi looked at the town and said, "General Bai, do you think this person will surrender?" Bai Qi looked at the town and said, "He's not stupid and will make the right decision." Half an hour later, Sun Wu led the town's higher-ups to Bai Qi and bowed as he said, "Sir, we're willing to submit to Qin." A trace of a smile appeared on Bai Qi's face as he started to take over the town. Now that the town's location had been leaked, they could not continue to stay here, or else they would have to defend it. However, Qin soldiers had many things to do, so they had to relocate the town. Time was of the essence, and they were worried that other factions would ally together to attack the town. If there were too many of them, it would be quite troublesome. Chapter 368. Sun Wu followed behind Bai Qi, and when he heard that Bai Qi wanted to meet His Majesty, the true owner of this faction, Sun Wu felt quite nervous and expectant. He wondered what sort of person could control such a massive faction. Soon, Sun Wu and Bai Qi arrived at an elegant restaurant and walked up the stairs to a room. There were many people in the room, and they all looked quite powerful. Moreover, they all gave off a dense stench of blood, and they had most likely killed many people not too long ago. These people were still standing at the side like ordinary guards, but Sun Wu could already feel how terrifying they were. There was only a young man sitting at a table by the window, elegantly drinking some wine. This young man gave off an incredibly noble aura, but he also gave off an incredibly dangerous aura, causing others to feel a sense of respect and not dare to look at him directly. "Your Majesty, I've brought him here." Sun Wu looked at the great general who had just subdued him and bowed respectfully before saying, "Yes, great general." Sun Wu felt that he had to be careful. Even the great general with an extraordinary aura was acting so respectfully, so he couldn't be careless either. This Majesty seemed like a very dangerous person, and he didn't know what His Majesty's temper was like. As such, he followed Bai Qi's example and bowed. Zhao Fu had just finished listening to Guo Binglin's report on the four factions. By now, the four factions were no longer much of a threat. Most of their core members had been killed, and the only remaining forces were their villages. If they hid somewhere, it would be fine, but if they dared to show themselves, Zhao Fu could take this opportunity to eliminate them completely. At that moment, Zhao Fu saw a young man that Bai Qi had brought over. He looked at his stats and found that this young man's stats were quite good, and his grade was SS grade. Moreover, he was the mayor of a town, so he was most likely a decent talent. Zhao Fu looked away and said, "Now that you've submitted to Qin City, don't worry, I won't mistreat you." Following this, Zhao Fu took out a legendary grade spear and a stage 2 blood god pill. Originally, When Sun Wu saw Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes, he instinctively felt some fear in his heart. Those eyes didn't seem to be the eyes of a human. There was coldness, killing intent, majesty, and a hint of devilishness. Only after Zhao Fu looked away did Sun Wu let out a sigh of relief. When he heard Zhao Fu's words and the item Zhao Fu had taken out, Sun Wu looked at it in shock. Zhao Fu had actually given him a piece of legendary-grade equipment. Sun Wu half knelt down in delight and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." The other people standing around didn't have anything to be envious of, as they all had legendary equipment. As for the Stage 2 Blood God pill, they had already consumed it. Following this, Zhao Fu started to talk about the factions that he had established in 100 Bamboo. Before, the 4 factions made up 1/3 of 100 Bamboo's power, and this system main city had been controlled by the Rin family, Skin Gang, and Lily Society. Now, they had all been slaughtered in a single night. If that was the case, Zhao Fu would be able to take over this system, main city, and gather all of the factions within it for his own use. Bai Qi, take them back and tell Li Si to take care of the town. Zhao Fu watched as the night drew to a close and dawn arrived. All of 100 Bamboo was about to go through a massive change, so Zhao Fu decided to stay here and personally take care of it. He ordered Bai Qi and the others to return to Qin City. Bai Qi obeyed and returned to Qin City, and only then did Sun Wu find out what had happened. He felt quite afraid. It wasn't that he was afraid of the 4 factions attacking, but that he was afraid of becoming enemies with Qin City. This was because he had seen the black-cloaked figures standing next to Zhao Fu, who gave off a dense stench of blood. They had killed 60,000 or so people, which was 3 times the population of his town. His Majesty Qin City is indeed terrifying. Sun Wu's first impression was correct, but what made him feel at ease was that even though His Majesty Qin City was terrifying, he wouldn't kill people for no reason, and he treated his subordinates quite well. Within the boundless darkness, the massive blood-red star silently spun and gave off a devilish blood-red light. Early the next morning, the sky brightened and the air was fresh. There were many drops of dew on the grass, and just as people woke up, an extremely terrified cry tore through the sky. Countless people heard this cry and hurried over. It was the Rin family's base, one of the 3 major factions. Could it be that something had happened? That shouldn't be the case. The Rin family was one of the 3 major factions, and no one dared to offend them. Everyone didn't understand what was going on, and they curiously followed some people over. However, before they even arrived, they smelled a dense stench of blood, and they could guess what had happened. The Rin family's base was covered with corpses, and blood was splattered all over the walls, the ground, and the pillars. Before they had died, they all had looks of terror and confusion on their faces, and everyone knew that this had been a massacre. The Rin family's base had been completely destroyed in a single night, and those who had been lucky enough to escape quickly left the Rin family, not daring to have anything to do with them. Everyone felt quite confused. Just who had the Rin family offended for them to be destroyed in a single night? Could it be a system city? However, they all looked incredibly furious. This had happened within their city without any warning. This was a massacre. However, something even more unexpected happened. It wasn't just the Rin family, but even the Skin Gang and Lily Society had been destroyed in a single night. From the way they had been killed, it was easy to guess that it had been done by the same faction. News of the 3 large factions being destroyed in a single night quickly spread, and a terrifying aura covered the system main cities. If 3 large factions had been massacred for no reason, how could the smaller factions resist? They would have been slaughtered as well. They couldn't stay in this system main city any longer, and many factions wanted to move to other system main cities. However, news of other major factions being massacred also spread. Immediately, a terrifying aura covered all of 100 Bamboo, and everyone started to feel threatened. They didn't know what terrifying faction had come to 100 Bamboo, and it was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. All of the factions started to panic, afraid that they would be the next target of slaughter. Suddenly, a faction called Long Night had appeared, and it was recruiting people without restraint. It took over the territory that had been controlled by the four major factions, and everyone seemed to understand something. They all ran over to give gifts and congratulate the establishment of this faction. If they still didn't understand who had done this, they would be incredibly stupid. Almost all of the major factions in 100 Bamboo came to express their goodwill. It could be seen just how terrifying Qin's massacre had been. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.